We can, if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
It wouldn't be bad, especially with Heidel there, holding it down.
Yeah,
and did we talk about Regis?
No, not really. We should.
Okay, so for 5A, I have Columbine, Pomona, Arvada West, Ralston Valley, Regis Jesuit. Do we need to talk Cherokee Trail? I don't really want to talk Cherokee Trail.
Why not?
We did Thunder Ridge, though, right? For sure.
We did Thunder Ridge.
We talked about them in our preseason. Did we talk Rock Canyon? I think we did, because we congratulated them on their...
We did not
no, we didn't?
Rock Canyon at all.
Oh, okay. Well, let's put Rock Canyon in here, especially because we do be getting some support from them.
Alright, let me put on a graphic. What's good, y'all? Welcome to the stream. We'll get this thing going in a little bit here. We're just getting our final list of teams put together, but basically this one will be pretty chill. I mean, we're going to be talking about a lot of teams here in Colorado that we just did not get to talk about before, and so we'll talk about their season last year, and then kind of what's moving forward. It is April. It's April 3rd when we're recording this, so we have some new information. We know, some things about player movement and all that great stuff, and so we'll talk a little bit about the future, but for the most part, man, we're just talking squads, right, Kodey? So I'm gonna change this title real quick.
I said as I was adjusting my entire setup during the stream.
What?
Don't worry about it. I got bothered by the way my screens were sitting.
Okay.
So.
Well, anyways, but yeah, we'll get it all figured out. We have a lot of teams that we're going to talk about, and if you, the fans, have any teams you want us to talk about, we'll add them. I mean, we'll touch on them at least. There are definitely squads that we've already talked about, and so we'll just say, hey, check out episode 100, 101, and then we'll go from there. But there's a lot of teams that we haven't talked about. I think that's kind of the bigger deal here, right, Kodey?
Yes. And I am also putting that in the chat. Welcome to the stream. Please drop any teams in the chat that you want to hear about or any clarifications or points you want to make about the season. I also have a tab open. New intro music better than Drake's last album. Well, thank you, Kleineroo. Shout out to Coach V, the DJ of our streams.
Yes. Sorry, I'm getting this thing going here. Okay. There we go. Okay. I can also see the chat as well. Alright. Kodey, do you have any announcements you want to make before we just hop into this thing, man?
Well, first off, thank you guys who have listened to our season in review episodes. Those two episodes have combined for nearly 500 listens. So
that's insane.
So shout out to Coach V also for those season in review TikToks that we'll probably be looking through a couple of those to see if there's any teams that we did miss. But other than that, we're going to be talking about a lot of teams that we either talked about in the previews for seasons, or teams that made the playoffs and we just didn't get a chance to talk about, because these two episodes were a total of 8 hours. So if people weren't trying to listen through the whole thing, that's totally understandable, and we still missed some because there are a lot of teams in Colorado. So it's no disrespect at all. It's just it's a lot. So we're constantly trying to find ways to be a little bit more efficient, and this streaming avenue should treat us well in that regard. But Simon, I don't know if I want to toss. Let's see, any other announcements? Look, we do request episodes on Mondays and Wednesdays. If you want your film broken down, go ahead and go to any of our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a link tree in there. There is a Google form. Fill that out, and we will address it accordingly with an emphasis on seniors first. But, we've had a couple of juniors and sophomores and whatnot broken down. So we'll either do that on Mondays and Wednesdays between Mason and myself, or on Tuesdays on streams, or whenever we do streams with film breakdowns that typically involve Coach V or myself. So that's kind of the lowdown on Colorado football stuff. And if you're a football fan and you're experiencing some withdrawals this spring, make sure to tune in to Fridays for Coach V's women's flag football episodes. We have award trackers. We have Playmakers of the Week. We got power rankings. We got it all. And recaps, and looking forward to the next week. And this is a big week for women's flag football. So go ahead and listen to episode 140, I believe is the one that Simon released on Friday, to get ready for this week. But yeah, I think that's kind of the gist, unless Simon needs me to buy some more time.
No, let's hop into it and let's talk about Wray here. So I am going to actually be playing clips and whatnot, so it's not just us, like, you know, showing y'all a bunch of other, like, stat lines and stuff that you yourselves can also look up. And so that's what we're going to do. And so this one, it's going to be of Casey Midcap. He's their freshman quarterback. Didn't he win Freshman of the Year for the 1A level for us? I thought he did.
I believe that he did.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fantastic, and he was not the problem with this Wray team that, you know, had a really good run this year, honestly. And Simon, if you don't mind me taking it away, I was just going to jump into their schedule here and talk about some of their notable games, including their very first one that I remember doing the recap for and noting it, being like, this is a surprising score. And I didn't know if it was more of a testament to Wray or a worry for Centauri, but I think it ended up being a testament for Wray. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Centauri, okay, in case you didn't know, Centauri obviously won the state championship against Lyman, who is pretty freaking good, you know, and so for them to, lose to them, they lost to Centauri 28-14 opening night. It's not too bad considering, you know, where Centauri ended. And honestly, Wray didn't have, I mean, considering where their season ended as well, that's not too bad either. I think going into next year for sure, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but they're probably a contender. I mean, I would be surprised though, for the most part. It looks like they're returning a lot of players. They kind of had a younger team, you know, and so you could throw some stuff there. But honestly, all the teams that Wray lost to were in the 1A state championship this year. You know, because they lost to Centauri, and then they lost to Lyman in the regular season 41-0, and then lost to them again in the playoffs 42-8. You know, and so Lyman and Centauri were both in state, and so that's pretty good for this Wray squad that looks to be returning a lot of guys, right, Kodey?
No, absolutely. On top of, you know, our Newcomer of the Year award for Casey Midcap, we also had, you know, Bauer here at the tailback position. He was their leading rusher with 787 yards, and he was only a junior, so he's going to be looking to come back. It looks like he's listed at 5'10", 180 pounds, so solid size for a running back. They'll have a couple of options also catching the ball, which is never a bad thing. And honestly, I watched that Wray game, right? And there were some bad drops in that game. From some players that maybe didn't drop the ball a whole lot. And, you know, one dropped first down that leads to a punt, that leads to a touchdown, to two more drops on a drive, that leads to no points, that leads to Lyman getting the ball and driving down the field and eating up a ton of clock. I mean, this Wray defense, you know, they forced Lyman to stop sometimes, and the offense just kind of sputtered out a little bit in that final game. But I don't think that should overshadow the success that this young squad had. I mean, they had an out-of-state win against Goodland in Kansas, and I'm not really sure what Goodland's standing is. I mean, I could literally just look at it. I mean, okay, they had a kind of a tough year, but, you know, winning out-of-state is big for Colorado schools 1 through the 5A level. So huge shout-out to that. And then, you know, they mobbed in league play in the hardest league in 1A. I mean, this league is seriously like the SEC of Colorado, you know, 1A football, with Wiggins in there, who they beat by 13. Holyoke, who they beat by 17. Like Simon said, they lost to Lyman, but so didn't everyone else, except for Centauri. Yeah. So, you know, they beat Yuma in a close game. They took care of business against Burlington, and then they kind of bounced, you know, the other teams in the playoffs before facing Lyman. And I think Wray is definitely a team that is on the up and up. 9-3, you have to be happy with that. And second in that 1A league, that's just really tough. And, you know, some of these things I think will get cleaned up this year. just kind of taking a look at the stats here, Bauer, like I said, he's a returning back, but, he did fumble the ball 8 times and lost 4 of those fumbles. That is a lot of fumbles for a tailback. So he's going to have to get stronger, protect the rock a lot better to, make this Wray team better. And the good thing is that he has a senior year to do exactly that. Casey Midcap is somebody who can be a little bit of a dual threat. He picked up almost 400 yards on the season. And they also have Brady Collins, who I believe is somebody that we did a breakdown on, I want to say. He's a very familiar name.
Yeah.
And, most of these guys play both ways, keep in mind. Brady Collins, a really good linebacker. So they have a lot of, steam. And I think that they just have to, kind of fix up some things on defense, work on their cardio a little bit from what I could tell in the lineman game, because it looked like they just got worn down. I mean, Jeremiah Leeper had a field day with this Wray defense, and it looked like fatigue and the offense having quick 3-and-out series kind of added up to that. So conditioning and then just better efficiency on the offensive end. And this Wray team, you're looking at a closer score for sure to end their season.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, this is a Wray team, like I said, I pretty much believe is going to be a contender next year. I mean, look, obviously, why did they put it to you a couple of times, but most of those guys are graduated at the end of this year and whatnot. And so, even though that was tough, I mean, obviously, that lineman squad is not only good for, the last couple of seasons, but they're, historically good. They have a lot of records in the Colorado high school football playbook, in the Colorado high school football history book here, just because, they were so dominant for so long. So that's not even a bad loss here. But, just looking at this Wray team, they had some dudes. Casey Midcap, like you said, Kodey, great freshman who's going to get even better. The Wade brothers, Peyton Wade, I believe, won a Playmaker of the Week one time for the 1A level. And then I believe... Did. Wait, what?
I think he did.
Yeah, he did. I forgot if it was you or me who gave it to him, but he won it. And then I believe this is either his brother or someone who's related to him, Tell Wade. He's a 6'3", 230-pound defensive end tackle. He actually has a Division I offer from Wyoming this last offseason. He earned it in the offseason here these past couple months. We didn't know about it when we were doing our season in review. And so that's kind of a big deal. We've heard some rumblings over there about them having an edge rusher, but he's looking like a legit D1 guy, and so they're going to be returning him, and that could be a game changer, especially on the 1A level, to have a D1 athlete over there. And obviously it showed this year because they were so good.
He's also got an offer from Air Force. He had an offer at one point from CSU. I'm not sure if that was the old or new coaching staff. And then, he's getting graphics made by Kansas State. This is a big deal. This is, a Dalton Reisner level talent on the defensive side of the ball, and he's built like that. So that's somebody to keep an eye on for our top 5 senior list. But yeah, both the Wade brothers were really good. And Simon, out of the 9 top tacklers from last season, they are returning 7 on the defensive end of the ball. Mm-hmm. And this is something that we talked about in the season previews, that, hey, the more experience you're returning on defense, that goes a long way. Obviously, you want to have the answers at quarterback, you want to have the answers at running back, but defense is one of those things where having multiple defenders together and having that chemistry take one more step in the offseason and more steps in the following season, that is a good build for a championship level team.
Oh yeah, but you know what? We'll talk more about them, on next year's preview. But this last year wasn't too bad. I think it was definitely like a growing year for a lot of these kids, and it's gonna show, right? Hopefully, it's gonna show that they learned a bit from this last year, and going into this next season, it's gonna pay off, right?
Yeah, and they have to get over the Lyman hump. The year before that, they lost in the playoffs to Lyman. The year before that, they lost in the playoffs to Lyman in 2019 to 2020 season. In 2018, it was Florence, which is a little bit of a change-up, but the monkey that they can't get off their back is actually a badger. So we'll see how they face that adversity, and if this young quarterback and this solid defense can finally help get them over the hump.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But, let's keep this thing going. We're going to talk about our next team here, another 1A team, and that is North Fork. Now, they've had a couple of players that made our end-of-the-year list here, specifically Blaine Peebles for I want to say, Colson Hollenbeek for D-Point, and I don't know if they had an MVP candidate. I don't think they did, or a freshman candidate. But, they're still up in there. This is a team that, they had dudes who put up stats, right, Kodey?
Oh, absolutely. Hollenbeek was a tackle for loss monster.
Yeah, shoot. What do you have?
26
15?
is ridiculous.
26?
And then,
oh my god.
Yeah, 26 tackles for loss, and then Carter Neff had another 23. Not to mention, I think you're thinking of the sacks, because Colson Hollenbeek had 14 sacks, which on the 1A level, oh my god, that's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Like, who gets 14 sacks in, a level of football that definitely runs the ball a little bit more, mainly because of numbers and, it's hard to come across skill players. But 14 sacks, good gravy. Not to mention, a secondary that also kind of feasted with 10 interceptions.
Yeah, Dryden Taylor, his highlight reel is playing right now. He co-led with 3. Blaine Peebles also had 3 as well. Look, this North Fork team, they had some ballers, I don't know if we necessarily predicted that because we weren't as, familiar with the 1A level going into this season, but now we know. Now, unfortunately, a lot of those guys, this was a pretty senior-heavy group as well.
Yeah.
And so, it's, you could kind of expect, they're going to be pretty good because they have a lot of seniors. Like Hollenbeek, their lead sack leader, was a senior. Their 2 interception leaders were seniors. Their lead receiver was a senior. Yep. Leading
running back.
Leading running back. Oh, my God. That's pretty bad. Was a senior. Drayden Taylor, he was a senior, their quarterback and safety. And so... Carter Neff. Hold up, wait. I don't know if he was a senior. Actually.
Yeah, he is.
Carter
Neff is a senior.
Oof. Okay. So look, they had a lot of seniors on this team. That's probably what you would expect, And they had a pretty solid season, 8-3. In the regular season, they lost to Buena Vista 28-21. You could have won that one. So there you go. That was also at home as well. So that's just kind of a tough loss, Played Meeker right after that, which is tough. In Meeker, lost to them 30-13. That's probably another winnable game. That 30-13 doesn't feel as close as it probably was. But other than that, they had some pretty solid wins on the regular season as well. Specifically, maybe not regular season, but their season. But specifically against Wiggins, they knocked them out of the playoffs 38-25. I think all of us. I don't know if all of us picked Wiggins, but it felt like the majority of us picked Wiggins in that game. And so that was a little bit of a shocker, not going to lie. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Another thing, too, is in these playoffs, they scored the second most amount of points, other than Centauri, against Lyman. They did put up 19 points, which is more than who we just talked about in Ray and more than Bennett. So, that's something that I think, obviously, you'd rather win state, but that's not something to hang your head over. And, outside of Meeker, they did really well in league. They took care of business in league, scoring a lot of points. This is not necessarily a team that, I associate North Fork here with a defensive powerhouse with all the studs that they had on the defensive side of the ball. But they scored, too.
Yes.
The lowest amount of points they scored all season was 13. Yeah. That's incredible. Other than that, I feel like they averaged 30 points a game, which is kind of nuts for a 1A team to be scoring like that. And something to kind of look forward to is that they are bringing back a quarterback. Their quarterback's only a sophomore. He had 4 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. So, there's potentially something to build off of that. Yeah, they averaged 37.1 points per game. Bro. Holy crap. That's dominance.
Yeah.
So
they deserve more credit than I feel like we have given them. And, other media outlets, not that there's a ton of media outlets covering them as well. There's literally maybe one other one outside of.
I was about to say, I know Anthony was pretty high on North Fork.
Yeah, he was.
Didn't he choose North Fork actually in our playoff prediction? I don't quote me on that, but I feel like Anthony did choose North Fork against Wiggins.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, so Anthony Ben knew. Make sure to check out our. Is it just Mile High Report? No, it's Mile High Prep.
Sorry, say that again.
At Mile High Prep Report.
Yes, it is.
Simon's screen said blue time.
Yeah.
I can see it reflected on you. But
yeah, no, for sure. So, yeah, I mean, this North Fork team, looking at how many seniors they have in hindsight, they deserve more respect. I mean, they're going to bring back a lot of guys and whatnot. And usually, at least on the 1A level, like, senior-heavy teams almost always do well. As in, like, maybe they lose 2 games in the regular season. Maybe, At least that's what we've seen so far. And so this wasn't the biggest surprise here, but at the time, it definitely felt like a little bit of a surprise. I mean, against Lyman, they lost 46-19, but that's Lyman. I mean, Lyman beat everyone like that except for Centauri, basically. So yeah, but I mean, that's North Fork. They had a lot of playmakers, a lot of fun guys to watch. Unfortunately, I mean, they ran into that Lyman buzzsaw, and on 1A, I mean, that's that's the squad that runs it. Even when Centauri did win, I mean, for the most part, they have ran it, and that's no disrespect to Centauri or anybody else. That's just the history that's there, right, Kodey?
I mean, the most dominant team in 1A in Colorado football, actually. History,
yeah, I was about to say Colorado football history for sure. I would say. And some would say Cherry Creek is their 5A, but it's like, okay, like, yeah, but they're not close to, Lyman right now in state championships.
Yeah.
They're 10 behind, I think, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. Dave Logan's going to have to coach for, like, 15 years.
And he could.
But, that was North Fork, and, this is a team, this next team here is one that has a little bit to be excited about and is probably going to go through a lot of changes this offseason. And I'm talking about the Florence Huskies. They are led by Levi Paxton at the quarterback position. But first, I'm just going to kind of take everyone through the schedule. And I was pretty high on these guys. And even I want to say that I awarded 2 players from Florence Playmaker of the Week, at least one. But, to start off the season, they were on fire. I mean, they beat Peyton, who was a playoff team, 50-0. They beat Clear Creek 71-0. They beat Wild Central 46-0. Holyoke. This was a game that made me take Florence a lot more seriously, because Florence is historically a team that struggles in the playoffs, and while they kind of did live up to that this season, this win against Holyoke made me. I was mowing a lawn. I remember where I was at. I was mowing a lawn and I was checking scores, and I was like, "What do you mean Holyoke lost to Florence? What the heck happened here? 36-15. Dang, that's a pretty good win." And that from that point on, that made me take Florence a lot more seriously. And they would continue this win streak all the way up until, I want to say, week 8, when they ran into Buena Vista, and they competed very tough against this Buena Vista team, and Buena Vista even had to come back in this game to secure a victory and ultimately win their league. But I mean, it was still a great run by Florence during this regular season.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I remember going into that Buena Vista Florence game, I don't think any of us would have been surprised if Buena Vista lost. We obviously all favored them, because I believe it was at Buena Vista as well, But, Florence, we felt like if they were for real, they would make a statement and go ahead and beat Buena Vista, right? I think that was definitely the vibe we had. And even going into the playoffs, we were like, hey, I don't know. I know the history is not on Florence's side right now, but, maybe they can make a run here. Maybe they replace a team like a Buena Vista, who at the time we had projected to make state opposite of Lyman, or at least some of us did.
Yeah, I mean, we've broken down players from Florence before, yes, and know that this is a football school. They have a pretty rich history of producing some studs. I mean, I'm pretty sure Owen Bosetti went to Florence, didn't he, Simon?
He did.
So
he's at Ottawa right now.
Yeah, he's at Ottawa. Go Braves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, they produce next level talent, and this year is no different. I mean, they had some dogs on this squad, and I want to talk about the duo that they had in the backfield. I want to say it's oh dude, I'm so sorry, Aguilar. I know I'm saying Aguilar correctly, but is it just Gene Aguilar? Gian Aguilar, and then Jacob Kennedy. I mean, these guys combined for 1,400 yards and 19 touchdowns on the ground. And it's always nice when you can have, kind of a two-headed attack with two backs. But something that was really different is, they had Levi Paxton, and they had a very balanced approach. And I thought that this might be something that allowed them to overcome some teams on the 1A level, is that they could do both. I mean, their running backs were averaging like 10 yards per carry between the two lead backs, and Levi was averaging a first down every throw. So that's a great squad for making a playoff run. But unfortunately, they did run into Wray, and they struggled in that Wray game. And I think that it was a bit of a learning curve for Levi Paxton, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I mean, Levi Paxton, he is a junior this year. Will be a senior next year, I think. Look, we'll have to see about this Florence team. I mean, they are returning a good number of players. They have some players that we have done breakdowns of that are returning as well, and so that's a pretty big deal. That's pretty good. Like I said, senior-heavy teams on the 1A level almost always do well, and so hopefully they continue to grow. We did get to see Levi Paxton at TFG tryouts, and I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm just gonna keep it 100. Like, he could have definitely done better. Was he the worst? Like, was he horrible? No. Like, you could see that he has the arm, that he's athletic, that he has all these things. But, obviously, it's a different environment playing against
TFG environment is very different than Florence, Colorado. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's not exactly an environment where you go and succeed right away. It's an environment where you got to compete, and you have to be, like, top 5%, top 10%. To make it, to be completely honest with you. And even then, there are some guys who were that and didn't make it. So, I'm at quarterback especially. So I'm just throwing that out there, man. I mean, going into next year, I think they will probably definitely rely on Levi Paxton a little bit more here. I wouldn't be surprised if he threw 30 touchdowns, and his running backs could definitely eat from that as well. Each get maybe double digits in touchdowns as well as. Or hold up, are they both returning, or is only
Kennedy and Aguilar are both graduating?
Oh, that's tough. Well,
so they do have to lean on Levi more, losing two solid backs.
You do have Xavier Martinez, who had 8 rushing touchdowns as well, and he's a junior, so maybe we'll see.
Their receiving core looks sweet. I mean, all of their receiving core was junior, sophomore, junior, and I think that they could put up big numbers if they really try and air it out this year.
No, for sure, but we'll see. This year, I mean, look, definitely a little bit of a growing year. Had a good year, though. Had a good year. I mean, like you said, Kodey, beat Holyoke 36-15. Lost to Buena Vista by a touchdown. That's definitely a winnable game. And then they lost to Wray in the playoffs. And that was by a lot too, 36-7. And so I'm gonna say this right now because I'm sure this isn't a bad clip to keep. But don't be surprised if Florence and Wray, they go deep in. Well, actually, no. Never mind. Florence, they're moving up to 2A. Kodey, did you know that?
Is that confirmed yet?
If Chassa confirms it, they want to move up to 2A.
We will do a reaction when that is confirmed to Chassa, by the way. So stay tuned for that stream. But yeah, Florence, it sounds like they could be moving up, which I think is good. They have a decent number of players on their squad. I mean, I saw some very small teams. I mean, Wiggins literally has like 30 players.
Yeah.
And I think Florence's sideline is a little bit more full than that. And honestly, I think that they could be pretty good on the 2A level. I think that they could beat, a lot of those Southwest teams that, I've talked about before. So I'm not too worried about them. I think that they could be a playoff team, but, competing, you have to deal with the big bad up in Northeast Colorado. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. All right, fair enough. We'll see. We'll see for sure. But look, not a bad season, right? But definitely things to work on. Definitely a little young, a little green at some positions. And honestly, shoot, man. Like, what else? What else do you want, right? So there you go. There. But I don't think I have anything else to say about Florence. They have a lot of potential. They showed it this season, especially as a team that could pass it a little bit. Going to next year, we'll see where they're at.
Yeah, and that's a great transition that they're jumping up to the 2A level, because up next we have a 2A squad that, experienced a lot of turnover in the offseason and maybe wasn't everything that we were looking for them to be. But, still put up some respectable numbers.
Well, maybe
in rifle.
Yeah, no, for sure. Let's talk about why we felt the way we did about rifle. First off, they won the state last year. They won coach, but they won state last year. That's why we were feeling them. We're like, hey, it's their championship to lose. They have a good coach out there, obviously, in case of beer and all that. Let's see. Maybe they could get something going here. And
returning running backs in a run-heavy system.
Yeah, they're returning basically everyone, I believe, right, Kodey? I thought they were returning basically everyone.
They returned a lot. I will say that looking at this schedule, they opened up with 2 3A teams, which is kind of nuts to start the season. That's not really, you don't really build a lot of confidence with these first 2 contests. And then their first win was from a forfeit anyway. So the start to their year was basically as unideal as you could expect or could project.
Sure.
Palisade, they ended up being a team that did win a playoff game in 3A, and we'll talk about them here in a little bit. Glenwood Springs is a team that is way more talented than their record indicates. And then, Lincoln, who they didn't even get to face before finally drawing, a 2A squad here. And then, this is just a brutal league schedule. I didn't realize how tough this 2A league was. And that's another thing, too, is, the 1A and 2A levels, definitely, we've learned a lot over the past season and through all these breakdowns of programs, cultures, and, every day we learn more. And this 2A league was no exception. This is kind of a tough league. Looking at who they had to play in league play, and they competed against teams that did go to the playoffs, and I think that one shimmer here of excitement, or whatever you want to call it, of hope, is how they competed against Basalt. I know that they ultimately lost that game, but still to go to overtime and lose by 1, that might get your hopes up here, but it will be a shuffling of the deck heading into the next season.
It was just a little disappointing. Look, losing your head coach, and it wasn't like they had a whole 6 months before he left. He left pretty close, I would say, to the regular season, because they went to state and won it in May, and then he wasn't there in August, right? So it's a tough go. Yeah, it's definitely a bit of a tough go, but that's just how it is sometimes. And so for them to win only 3 games, and really one of these games is a forfeit as well, that's not super surprising, right? That's as good as it gets. Look, those first 2 games, playing Palisade to open up the season, that sucks.
I would not schedule that. I would not schedule that if I was the AD. I don't know what was going on there.
Well, yeah, but maybe if they were confident with where they're at the season before, I would schedule that and be like, all right, let's see if this offense of this same squad that won state in the spring could turn up against this tough Palisade squad. And so if it was the same coaching staff, then yeah, 100%, but it wasn't. And so it just ended up being a lot more pressure and tougher than it was. Glenwood Springs, that's a tough game. Probably a team we'll talk about eventually here, so there you go. Then after that, having to play Moffat County, which was a little bit of a sleeper with that stud of a running back and Evan Atkins out there, that sucks because he's basically white Adrian Peterson on the 2A level. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, they lost to them 46-13. Coleridge, that's the other dub they got this season. Also, by the way, they have like no film, so I'm just gonna keep replaying this. But Coleridge, they beat 28-7, but it's Coleridge. I mean, maybe the best game you could be, a game you could be probably happy about is that Basalt game. They only lost to them 29-28 in OT, and so, for a team that lost as much as they did, this is not a horrible season. You still went 3-6, but I don't know what you were expecting after you lost.
Yeah, I don't know what more you could get out of that squad.
Yeah,
so, and they have a lot of people graduating, so this is going to be a big turning point year. And this season, you might want to consider how you're scheduling and stuff, and just try and get some of these wins early to build confidence, because there's going to be a little gap in confidence on this rifle squad between player to player, and I think that building confidence is going to be the most important thing for you out of the gate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they're losing their starting quarterback. Also, state championship quarterback Trey Caldwell, who we thought was going to take a step forward, but unfortunately it was what it was, And then they're losing their starting running back, Tuttle Fletchell. They lost because they had two running backs in that state game, so they already lost one of them going into this year, and so they'll lose their other state running back after this year. So it could be a bumpy ride for Rifle. I'm just going to be honest with you, and I don't know. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not going to look good. Like it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to say the least. But we'll see. Someone has to step up. But for now, I don't think it's somebody that we know of just yet.
We eagerly await their arrival.
Yep, but honestly, I don't have too much to say there. Hey, let's talk about Delta, though. That was the last team that Rifle played in their season, and they lost to Delta 35-7. So let's talk about them. Kodey, do you want to take the lead on this one here?
Well, I was about to say, speaking of arriving, I mean, who arrived more in the 2A level other than, Delta's very own Ty Reed, who, I mean, I believe he was our newcomer of the year, and, he threw 13 touchdowns to 5 picks, threw for 914 yards, ran for another 329, and 14 touchdowns. That's the real crazy part. He was responsible for 27 touchdowns as a freshman, which is just ridiculous. I mean, I don't even know if that was matched by anyone else in our newcomer candidacies. So, he's a dual threat quarterback. He has some moves. He's very dangerous in the goal line situation. They do run some RPOs over there at Delta too. So they run a system that's very conducive to, Ty Reed. And, they got a lot out of him this season. I mean, look, they also had a big-time tailback in Timothy Horn, who had himself a really nice season with 11 scores, 1,338 touchdowns. And I mean, you could probably call this squad like a baby Erie squad, here in the 2A level with, some of the concepts that they ran and kind of how their team form was kind of put together. And, that you also had a senior in Hunter Goff, I want to say, Hunter Goff, who recorded 105 tackles. So there's a lot of good things to like on this Delta team that, oh my gosh, Ty Reed, look at that guy go. But there are a lot of things to like, and they had an undefeated league play, I should say, and the only team that they lost to all year until the playoffs was a 3A playoff squad in Palisade. Palisade drawing a lot of these 2A teams, but it was a big year for them, and they clutched some of these really tough games in their league. I mean, look, beating Basalt, giving them a whooping, beating Rifle, giving them a whooping, beating Aspen, giving them a whooping. All of those teams are teams, or subtract Rifle, Basalt and Aspen were teams that could score in droves. And then beating Moffett County 17-14. I was really looking forward to their rematch in the playoffs because it was just such a highly contested game with, great defense on both sides. And then in the playoffs, they opened up with a big bang and, I mean, they lost to University, but University honestly was a couple of throws away from making state and beating Eaton. So,
yes.
I think that's a good bar to set here. And, it was a learning curve for Ty Reed in this game, who did struggle pretty mightily, throwing 2 picks and no touchdowns in this game. So, and it looks also like, they tried a trick play here, and I think that it was just youth that kind of hurt them in this University game more than anything. And that's not really a bad thing. They are graduating, Hunter Goff, they are graduating Timothy Horn, but look, if you have a quarterback, that's the hardest hole to fill out of any of them. So, Simon, what did you think of this Delta team? I mean, they kind of have a reputation for producing some football players, but I did not see 9-2.
Well, here's the thing with Delta, right? So going into this season, we did not know about Tyree. I think for the most part, most people did not know about Tyree. The guy that we thought was going to take over at quarterback was Scarnhorst. Was it not Nathan?
Yeah.
Scarnhorst? Yeah. And he wasn't a bad quarterback. He backed up, was it Nolan Bynum, the quarterback for Delta last year and whatnot? And he got some time. Yeah. Yeah. So it was like, okay, so Scarnhorst, he's the guy. He looked good last year.
His experience.
And so we'll see. But then, the season goes on. I believe they started him, didn't they?
I'm not sure. He only had 8 attempts on the season. So, but well, 2 TDs to no interceptions. Scarnhorst isn't a bad quarterback by any means.
No, he committed somewhere too. So it's not like he's just not he's not doing anything. Yeah, he did start the season. He went 5 of 8 for 116 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 67 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown against Sunday, which is pretty good.
That's a great game.
Yeah, that's really good. That's what you can expect from a senior quarterback. But down the line, they kind of transitioned to Ty Reed here in this Palisade game. By this Palisade game, Ty Reed was playing. He went in that game. He went 7 of 16, a touchdown, 2 picks. Also, hold up, where is it?
I almost wonder if an injury happened
to
Scarnhorst, who opens the door for Ty Reed.
Yeah, it might have been. Honestly, it might have been. And so that's just a testament to how things go in high school football. One day you could be on top of the world, you could be QB1, and then next day an injury happens and a freshman takes your spot, and has a chokehold on that spot too, because he's a good one, as well as is shown in some of these highlights, man. I'm excited for Ty Reed moving forward, but this season was definitely a bit unexpected. Look, just looking at some of these dubs, man, they hammered, and hammered Basalt 42-14. They beat Moffett County, like you said, in a close one. And then, in the playoffs, obviously beat Alamosa. That was the game they were favored in. But losing to University, a team that was really catching fire and feeling themselves as, you went down the line, that was just a tough one to draw. And also they had to play in Greeley as well. And you know how the CHASA rules are. Like, you can't, one team can't have more playoff games than the other. And that's basically what came into action here. And so look, I love the University boys and whatnot, but you just got to think about it. If this, playoff game was in Delta, how different would it be? Because that's not an easy drive from Delta to University. That's a couple hours for sure.
Yeah. No, that's fair. And University dispatched of both of the teams here in the 2A West. So,
yeah. And, playing at home in University is a little tough too. Because, they have a pretty nice stadium and whatnot, I would say. At least the home side. The away side is really small, which is probably on purpose. But it's, criminally small. And then you have a bunch, huge concrete, stands and places to sit, basically, at University. And so, from what I heard, they packed that stadium to the rim with University students, fans, supporters, whatever. And that's tough. I went there when they played Eden, and that probably wasn't the most packed it could be, but even then, you could feel the energy, resonating after every big University play, God. Especially when Greg Garza rolls out and you got one of his 6'3", 6'4" receivers in 101. Oh my, that's a crowd. That's crowd fuel just waiting to be used right there. You know, that's wild. And so that's just tough, you know. Delta, obviously much better than we thought they were. Probably could have made a run here if they didn't run to University at home. Even if they played University at their place, it would have been tough. But, I mean, going into next year, one has to think, like, okay, you know, lost in the second or third round here. That's not bad. Let's see what happens moving forward with this quarterback who looked really good in his freshman year. And we'll get a film breakdown of him done soon, too, here as well.
Yep.
But is there anything else you want to add on here, Kodey, on University?
I mean, it hurts that you're losing your big-time running back and your big-time linebacker. Yes. But like I said, quarterback is the hardest hole to fill. And they have the answer for the next 3 years. So that is a sigh of relief.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can live with that. It could be a worse situation. Let's be honest. It could be a much worse situation. So you can live with that.
Yeah, be grateful.
What?
I said be grateful.
Yeah, no, for sure. Also, they actually throw the ball, so you know they're not gonna just use them as a running back. And yeah, so there you go. But anyways, moving on. Kodey, do you mind if I take the lead on this one? Give you a little bit of a break here.
Proceed.
What?
Proceed.
Oh,
as
I thought
in
you said
advance,
proceed.
as in go.
Yeah, and I will. All right, so up next, let's talk about Severance. We were looking through the teams that we didn't talk about in depth, and Severance was a surprising one because I feel like we definitely said, oh, we'll talk about them more, and then we came to playoffs, and we just talked about TCA's failures much more than Severance's success. And look, good God, okay, we got to give this Severance program a lot of credit. They're in year 3 of existence. 3! And they are so much better than the majority of teams in Colorado. I'm just going to be honest with you. They just are. I got to see them live against Eden, and then obviously against TCA, who has a D1 running back. And oh my God. First off, players are great, right? They have athletes over there. There's no, I mean, it's a little surprising because Severance is out there, and also, you know, there could be an argument that, oh, Highland is fighting for Severance athletes, Eden is fighting for Severance athletes out there, whatever, right? Or whatever smaller program out there. And so it's kind of crazy that there are athletes that far out there. But it's not just that, it's how they're coached. And they're coached extremely well. Tough defense, man. I'm like, I don't know. I've been looking at some Severance film here at a couple different games, and just the way they play defense, how disciplined they are, how they give, you know, quarterbacks that throw the ball, not that there are many, a couple of different looks here. It's tough, you know. I mean, they play good football, defensive football for the most part, honestly. And I mean, I'm just a big fan of how they ran over there. I know they might be making that jump to 3A, but here, let's talk this season. This season they won 9-3, but their first the first 2 games were definitely blowouts. Against the Evelyn, they made a statement, beat them 54-0. Against Niwot, they allowed a safety, so 2 points. Against Platte Valley, which was a team that I said was a sleeper for a lot of teams, no matter what talent they had or where they're at that season, you know, they still beat them 17-14, took care of business. Against Brush, who made it to state against Eden, they beat 20-7. Against University, who was in the semis, they beat them 34-13. I mean, look, man, we're like, God, what? Here, let me just do this one more time. It's not until they play TCA where a team scores, it's not until they play TCA where a team scores over 20 points on them. And then it's not until they play the Academy on October 30th, that is literally 2 months into the season, where a team scores more than 2 touchdowns, at least 3 touchdowns, right? All season.
You win. in a Severance win.
Wait, what do you mean? Oh, sorry.
Because
they
faced Rez and Eden before that, but
right, yeah, in a win, and obviously Rez is good. Eden, I mean, this 31-0 is a lot closer. There are like 3 or 4 goal line stands on 4th down that they just didn't win. Did they call the wrong play? No. It's just, I mean, look, it's power against power. It's 1v1. Like sometimes you're gonna win, sometimes you're gonna lose, and I mean Ryan Dirksen and Drew just proved to be a little bit more stronger on those plays when it came down to it. And so, I mean, honestly, if you take away those 3 goal line touchdowns that they scored, I mean, that's like 11 points. So there you go. And then even Rez, who was on fire, averaging like 50 points a game or whatever, they only limited to 24. And so this Severance team, I mean, look, they're a defensive squad, defensive squad that isn't just reliant on like a few athletes. Obviously, they had Keegan Donovan out there, who should have been a top 5 safety. I'm going to be honest. I think we all agree on that. He obviously holds everything together, but I mean, you had so many, and I mean so many other players on that team. We're talking about Colby Runner, who averaged 11 tackles a game. We're talking Don Butts, who had 14.5 sacks as a junior, I want to say, as well. So he's going to be coming back. He's not going away, I don't believe. He will graduate in 2023. Some of these are a little, I'm just looking at these, they're a little weird. You have the Gastic brothers, Reese and, oh my lord, I know who it is. You have the Gastic brothers, Reese and Parker. They were going crazy at one point. Early on in the season, they each had 3 or 4 interceptions or something crazy like that. 2 or 3 interceptions, probably. So, I mean, they had so many
for
dudes.
12.
Huh?
They combined for 12 total on the season, just the 2 of them.
There you go. Which is wild, because Keegan Donovan had 6. So, yeah. And then you had Brady Varney. I mean, we haven't talked about him nearly enough as well. He was the second sack leader on the squad with 9.5 sacks. And this dude is literally a sophomore. Oh my god, man. And then, jeez. And then you have Reese Gastic, like I said. He also had 8 sacks. So Reese had 8 sacks and 5 picks. His brother, who is coming back next year, had 7 picks. You have Trevin Hole, who held it down at corner. I mean, God, they just had so much talent that was just used so well. And they produced so well this season. Losing to Brush, I mean, went to state for a reason. It's not like they're bad. But, Kodey, what do you think about this Severance team?
I mean, you said a lot, but I mean, when you have a couple of players that are invited to the blue-gray, kind of the blue-gray bowl, that's a big deal. Trevin Hole, at the same time as holding it down at corner, he also caught 8 touchdowns and led this team in receiving yards with 828 yards. I mean, this team had 17 yards per reception. Are you freaking kidding me? And that's with kind of a rotation at the quarterback position. Well, I won't say a rotation, but that's with 2 different quarterbacks throwing touchdowns. You had Hertzke and Hoffman combined for 19 total touchdowns on the year to only 8 interceptions. So both quarterbacks were efficient. Both quarterbacks were making pretty solid decisions. Overall, 52% completion rate between the 2 of them. I mean, there's a lot to like about that. That, you have depth at quarterback. They're both competent. And, you have a couple of different playmakers in the backfield. I mean, they also had, Shorb, who was their lead back with 9 touchdowns. But they definitely did a running back by committee here where, the carries were split 116, 82, 57, 55. And, even Reese getting 24. And also, getting their wide receivers into the offense with, Trevin Hole himself getting 12 carries for 87 yards. And just a lot of creativity on the offensive side of the ball. And, just a massive amount of discipline on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, on the screen, at least in my time, there's a, special teams fake punt play. So lots of fun on this Severance team for the coaching staff and for the players. And, I think that what they showed coaching-wise and scheme-wise, that is what's going to hold this Severance team to such a high standard for the next few years, especially experiencing amazing success so early. There's a lot to be stoked about here, and they're just getting started. They are graduating quite a bit of talent this year, but I'm not too worried about it. I have faith in this coaching staff.
Talent, Kodey. They're graduating like 2 guys. They're both just really good. You know,
Donovan and Hole is tough. Is tough to be graduating, and then Reese is also graduating. So they are graduating some talent this year. They are bringing back quite a bit of talent. You do have a point on the defensive side of the ball. Outside of those guys, like the other brother who had 7 picks, and then Butts as well. But we'll see how they fill those gaps. But there's still plenty to be excited about for this Severance squad, and I think that they'll only get better. They will only get better with this coaching staff in the offseason.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, obviously you're losing some talent, but compared to some other teams, I mean, they're really losing like 3 or 4 starters here. Because, like I said, this is a pretty young program. They were only in their 3rd year, and so going to this 4th year, you got guys who were with them since the beginning for the first time ever. That will be graduating as well, and so that'll be pretty exciting. So, we'll see how it goes and all that. But this Severance team, very good. They gave a lot of teams problems, and even going into the future, man, I think they're projected to go into 3A. Good God, they could be a problem on 3A for sure. I think defensively, they're right there. I think they'll translate really well to the 3A level. Offensively, I think so as well. I think we just got to see where they're at quarterback. I know Hertzke, he has flashed a lot of talent. He could run a little bit. He could definitely throw it. He's just so inconsistent at times, and that was kind of tough. And at the end of the season, when they started rotating in quarterbacks, I believe Hoffman was up in there at times, and you had Hertzke, and they were just splitting snaps. I mean, they just didn't want one to go super cold, and I get it, but eventually you gotta find a quarterback, and so we'll just see about that. I know they are losing Trevin Holt, but they have this young player in Jeremiah Hoffman, Kodey, who you and I have seen, because he's a Team Full Gorilla guy out of Severance, and he was giving 5A guys the work, both physically and agile-wise. He honestly, and I've said this a couple of times, but I figure I might as well say this, this one time around here. He's probably the second coming of Tucker Peterson, but for Severance. And for a team to be as stacked as you are defensively and still have weapons, even though you're losing Donovan, you're losing Trevin Holt, you got a guy in Jeremiah Hoffman who's he's a taller dude. I think he's above 6'1", 6'2", and he's still growing. That he's going up against great talent on the 5A. He's going up against Cherry Creek corners and like those type of talents, with TFG. And so, he should be dominating if him and the quarterback are on the same, agenda, I guess, schedule. But he should be same page, same thing. But he should be dominating if they're on the same page here on the 2A or 3A level. And so they are just getting started. They've made the semis pretty much every year. Severance has. They made the semi-finals and the playoffs every year, except for last year, which was a pandemic year. And that's in program history. And so, a lot of good things ahead of them. Kodey, is there anything else you want to add on before we move on?
No. I mean, they're moving to 3A, and our next team is already in 3A.
Yeah. Do you want me? I can take the lead on this as well if you'd like. It's up to you.
Yeah, sure. I think that this is a very interesting schedule to kind of talk about. So I'll let you talk about that, and then we both gave this team a Playmaker of the Week award as well.
We did, and so the highlights that are playing now are of Fallon Savalti. He was the first guy I want to say that I actually gave a Playmaker of the Week to, because I remember looking through all the levels of football and whatnot, and then I saw his stat line, and I was like, okay, he's for sure Playmaker of the Week on this level. And so I definitely remember him being the first one that I personally gave it to. And so he was a big part of this Palisade team that was pretty good. 4-0 in their league in that 3A Central West League, 9-3 on the season. I mean, they did their job, and they made a statement by beating a state champion in rifle. Now, granted, they're losing some players, coaches, all that stuff. But, at the time, there was still optimism for rifle, and so I have to give them credit because they put it to them, beating them 35-3. Lost a close one to Grand Junction Central, which is interesting. Aren't they a 4A or are they a 3A team, Kodey?
I think that is 4A because weren't they in Genoa's? Yeah, they're 4A.
Yeah, that's interesting. So they lost to them 12-8. Then they played another 2A team and Delta beat them 28-10. But that's a good Delta team, though. So just keep that in mind. Still beating them 28-10 there. Montrose, the number 1 seed in 4A, they lost to them 35-7. That is just a tough pull. Not many 4A teams even beat them, so there you go. Then you have Conifer. They got back on track, beating them by 21. Beat Battle Mountain 28-17, a little closer there. What a close one against Summit 29-26. But then bounced back and beat Steamboat Springs 62-26. Jesus Christ. What the
Oh my God, Simon.
Steamboat Springs is a team that's not even that bad either. Like, I didn't think it was that bad, but it was. So, there you go. Then, came back to earth just a little bit here. Beat Glenwood Springs 27-14. Then got back on track, beating Eagle Valley 47-20. Pueblo East 45-21 in the playoffs. Then had to face Lutheran, who was as complete a team as any, not just on the 3A level, but in Colorado. And they lost to them 49-7. And so, Palisade, look, we know they play tough defense. We know that they run the ball a ton. Not too bad of a season here. They had a lot of playmakers out there. Kodey, do you want to talk about some of their playmakers outside of the one I just mentioned, the junior running back, Fallon Savalti, who will be back next season, by the way?
Yeah, and so will their other big-time playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. As referenced in episode 69, the Week 5 recap, Malachi Espinosa was crowned the Playmaker of the Week on the 3A level, and it's not very hard to see why, as in this Conifer game, the passing stat line, schmassing stat line, you know what I mean? He was definitely a runner more than a quarterback, and that was very obvious when he had 12 carries for 130 yards and 5 touchdowns. He was running crazy on this Conifer squad that, has a reputation for playing solid defense, but Malachi did not care about their reputation in this game as he ran wild. And so did a lot of the rest of the squad. This wasn't Salvati's biggest game, but another junior in Rhett Ward also ran for 93 in this game, and that was their bread and butter. Lots of running the ball. Look, I'm not a huge wing T guy. I feel like they do it in somewhat creative ways from time to time. They'll also run out of Wildcat, and their quarterback also runs with the ball too. So, talking about overall stat lines and how good they were at running the ball, this team ran for almost 4,000 rushing yards. They had 1,162 out of Malachi, who's a junior. They had 1,011 out of Salvati, a junior. They had 836 out of Rhett Ward, a junior. And, their biggest senior was Barks here with 680 yards. So even he still produced. And, they averaged 7.2 yards per carry and ran for 46 freaking touchdowns. I don't even know what to say. That's what looking speechless looks like, okay? And, I was a little worried about them heading into this Summit game. I thought that Summit was on a bit of a roll, and I thought, this is going to come down. This is going to determine who wins league. And they also have that quarterback out there, Shearholtz, I want to say, Jack for Summit, and he played a phenomenal game in this contest, scoring all of Summit's touchdowns, literally passing for 3 and running for 1, doing everything he could, but just couldn't overcome the might of 313 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns between the big dogs, the Bulldogs, I should say, for Palisade, who, ran for 4 touchdowns in Espinosa, Ward, and Salvati. And they're all coming back next year. So this will be a very interesting conference to keep an eye on between Summit and Palisade. But, they took care of business this year, and I was like, they did face 2A squads, but they balanced it out with the 4A squads. So that's how their schedule ends up being strong and how they get this 9-3 record. And, ultimately just kind of ran out of juice in that Lutheran game, but still a lot to be proud of this season, honestly. Not to mention one of our best of the rest linebackers that you had a chance to break down. Isn't that right, Simon?
Yeah, in Kevin Sogren, he's actually going to Wyoming. Won't be playing linebacker, but he'll be playing defensive end for them. And I think that's a lot better for where he's gonna be at over at Wyoming and whatnot. I think this year, he was like the tackle leader for 3A, and I think Colorado potentially as well. At least he was top 5 there. He played the run super well. That's gonna be kind of a big loss. Not gonna lie, because just watching through his film, I'm like, God, the rest of this defense almost doesn't have to do anything when it's a run play, because he just shuts it down himself, because he's that good playing the run. Super disciplined, super smart, playing the run for sure. There are some guys who kind of just use their athleticism to get away with being a good run defender. And then you have some guys who have athleticism but are super smart as well, and they plug up holes and do their thing out there. And so he's going to be missed for sure, but he was a big part of this defense. And so whenever this Palisade team had to go up against another team and they had the lead, or wait a second, what am I trying to say here? Palisade was trying to get back into a game and another team was running it, you could almost certainly rely on Sogren here to go ahead and shut down that drive himself, and then they could get back into it. So that kind of helped them out and made up for a lack of pass game, even though they did have a pretty dominant run game. And so there you go. Palisade was a pretty solid team. Look, I didn't expect them to beat Lutheran, honestly, but some of the teams that beat here, I definitely understand, beating Pueblo East, I felt like that was a pretty easy pick for the most part there. And honestly, if they didn't play Lutheran, maybe they would have had a little bit of a longer postseason, because this was a team that had talent. They ran the ball a ton, but they were creative with it, and they had a couple of different guys who could run it, and then defensively they were tough, and so next year will be interesting. We'll see how they continue to adapt and all that, if they adopt a little bit more of a passing game just to ease up some of that pressure, because I think, honestly, losing to Luther the way you did, you got to think, okay, there's got to be, we got to have at least 1 or 2 passing touchdowns to go with these 4 or 5 that we average a game, 3 or 4 that we average a game, just because it's, when you play a team like Lutheran, who's as complete as they are, and I'm sure they will, eventually this next season, it makes it you got to be almost perfect on offense and defense with the scheme that you're running on O. Because if you're just running it and you go 3 and out 2 or 3 straight times, then you're screwed. And it's oh shoot, now we're down by 21 and all we know how to do is run the ball. So not only is the clock going to be going, but our run game that hasn't been working 2 or 3 drives in a row is also screwed currently. And so we need to break 1 or 2 big ones, which is a lot to ask. Honestly, it's almost like saying we need 1 or 2 Hail Marys for this offense to be okay. So we'll see, but they have athletes over there, no doubt about it. They had a pretty good season. I think playing some of these tougher teams also helped them out as well. So just wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, I don't have too much more to say, Kodey. If you have anything you want to add on here.
It's the same thing with every team that is close but no cigar, literally only running the ball. It's a conversation that we're going to have later this episode anyway. So might as well just keep going.
Okay.
Onto the 4A level, I believe.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So
throw the damn ball.
Do you want to talk about it? Would you want to lead this one or do you want me to? I'm good either way.
You can lead this one and I can take the next one. I think that makes sense.
Fair. So up next we have Mesa Ridge. I'm about to play some Noah Ramirez highlights.
Wednesday. Noah Ramirez film breakdown. I did his for his request. So this is topical. It is topical. I
also met their head coach last Friday. He didn't know it was me because I was working for the city of Colorado Springs. So JC out there, hey man, appreciate you. I know you coached a tough game against Vista Ridge, but also that team has been playing basically year-round, so, it is what it is. But anyways, look, I like Coach JC for the most part. I believe this was his first year, either first or second year, and Mesa Ridge, they went 5-6, but they are definitely better than this record, I would say, personally. And so here's how it went down. Opening up the season against Denver South, you win a close one, 31-28. Love to see it. A dub's a dub. After that, you have a really tough matchup against Palmer Ridge, who the year before did go to state. Now, obviously, they lost McAllister, they lost Saxon Wright, they lost a lot of players, but it's still Palmer Ridge. It's still the Monument Moving Company, who you got to do battle with, who has like 4 or 5 D1 and Power 5 D1 offensive linemen. Like, arguably the best line in the entire state. Plus, you throw in Costanzo, who's like arguably the best athlete in the entire state. You have a good running back in Connor Cook out there as well. So, or wait, did I say Connor Cook? Is it Connor Jones?
No, it's Connor. Or what? You're talking about the running back?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Connor Jones is the lineman.
A left tackle. Sorry. Connor Cook is also a quarterback for Michigan State. Plus the Raiders back then. So I got a little confused there. But yeah, so you had a good running back there. And even on top of that, you have KJ Smedley. They have so many dudes. And they go toe-to-toe with them. And they barely lost by 3 points. They lost 30-27 against Palmer Ridge. That's probably a game that we would have loved to see them win. But that's, we'll see. For now, it's not too bad. 30-27, you could kind of live with that if you're Mesa Ridge there. But after that, play Pueblo East, I believe. I don't know. Is Pueblo East a 3A or 4A team? Because I saw Palisade played them, didn't they?
Pretty sure they're a 3A team.
Yeah, but they lost to them.
This is one that they definitely dropped for sure.
Yeah.
This is a game that they should have won.
They were not playing up to, or they were playing down to them. So it was definitely different. But then you bounce back, beat Whitefield 35-0, beat Canyon City 35-20, lost to Fountain Fort Carson 7-0. Y'all went to that game. I wish I did. I didn't. That's probably a game you could have won as well. Then you lost Pueblo West 35-14. Not even that bad, honestly. Then you bounce back with easy dubs against Colorado Springs Schools, 49-7 against Coronado, and then really close one, 14-6, but you still beat them against Rampart. Then in the playoffs, or wait a second, I want to say this is the playoffs, right? Against Fuda, or no. This is league still, sorry. Against, this is a tough league game. But against Fuda Monument, who was like a top seed team, I want to say, they lost to them 36-35. So another one-score loss. At this point, they have 3 one-score losses against teams that were rated high in the playoffs and all that. So that's tough. And then you play Denver South, who gets revenge, and they beat you in the playoffs 24-21. So go ahead and make it. I don't think Denver South was rated above Mesa Ridge. It just felt like they were. So 3 losses against teams that were rated higher than you in the playoffs. You lost to them by a score in the regular season. And so all in all, Mesa Ridge didn't have a bad year. I mean, there were a lot of games that they probably could have won and, probably should have won. Right, Kodey?
Well, I definitely think that they should have won this Pueblo East game. And then that changes their regular season record to 6-4. That's a pretty big swing. But 5-5 as a regular season and getting into the playoffs, playing some pretty tough opponents. I mean, they got into the playoffs, rightfully so. And I think the seeds were like literally 16 and 17. Yeah, Mesa Ridge was 16, Denver South was 17. So They were as close as they were at the beginning of the season as they were at the end of the season. So I'm not too mad about it. I think it's kind of funny, actually, that Mesa Ridge won in Denver and Denver won at Mesa Ridge. It's just kind of silly how that worked out. But, 4 points is the difference between 5-5 and 7-3 for this team, between the Fruita Monument game and the Pueblo East game. I think that those are the 2 games that they could have won the most. Fountain Fort Carson, I mean, look, they had 3 guys on our top 5 corners list who all deserved to be there. And I I can vouch for that because I saw them put in work against this Mesa Ridge squad that did have some playmakers on the offensive side of the ball. Cash Cheeks being just a big body target, and Desmond Burton as well, who's a big yak kind of guy on the offensive side of the ball. So, there were some seriously good talents on this Mesa Ridge team, and Noah Ramirez did a great job of getting them the ball in space. And, that was kind of their bread and butter all year. And, it produced a pretty solid season for this Mesa Ridge squad that I think, I think that I'd say that they probably exceeded expectations, even with the talent that they were returning who started the previous year. At least they exceeded expectations for myself. And, I was thinking 5-5, that's a good record, especially with some of the holes that they had on this roster. I think that they, overachieved, and they had to compete. They have to compete for talent where they are at. So, it's always good to see them kind of break through. Noah Ramirez being an NAIA level quarterback, it's always good. And, having a couple of next level players really helped this team. I think that this team was definitely carried by, some solid coaching, getting their playmakers in the right spot, and playing to a few players' strengths here. Oh my God, what a hit. And helping this team get some dubs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, man, I'm just looking back. This Mesa Ridge team had a lot of talent. And I think I might have called them a dark horse at one point just because of how much talent they had. Noah Ramirez, he was a quarterback that I felt like, could potentially be a D2, D3 type guy. A next level guy for sure, just kind of depends how he develops. Nico Allgood, the running back, he didn't have a bad year. 77.5 yards a game. That's pretty solid. Desmond Burton, great athlete on offense and defense. Can't go wrong with that. Cash Cheeks, great athlete on offense and defense again. And then Elijah Davis, somebody who's super versatile as a linebacker. If we had him rated as an inside linebacker, he would have made our top 5 list. And then at that point, you have Cash Cheeks and Elijah Davis, 2 guys, make our top 5 list. And that's pretty good for a squad. And so, unfortunately, they're graduating all those guys I just talked about. And so next year will be interesting. You're going to have a lot of new faces pretty much everywhere. Honestly, a lot's going to change. Almost the entire offense, almost the entire defense, it feels, as far as starters and impact players go. And so we'll see about that, but Mesa Ridge, they definitely showed us quite a bit here. So, not bad, but definitely a team that might be on the rise here in the next coming years. So yeah. But, Kodey, is there anything else you want to talk about when it comes to Mesa Ridge here? I feel like they're just a real underrated team with a lot of underrated talent. And at the end of the day, it just came down to a couple games that just slipped away.
I cannot say it any better. So I won't.
Cool. Well,
but I think that this is a good time to talk about a team that I got to see in person, and a team that I'm very excited to see next year, who is, oh my gosh, they're good. All right, and that is this Denver South Ravens squad. Little bit of a Baltimore call out here, but this Denver South squad, I was really high on them heading into the playoffs, and honestly, I think that they probably should have had an undefeated regular season. They did have a lot of young talent, and I think that was obvious in some instances, especially in their playoff, end to the number 1 seed in all of 4A. However, let's talk about this Denver South squad. They dropped this first game to Mesa Ridge by 3 points, and, right off the game, I didn't quite know what to expect from Mesa Ridge, so I didn't know, is this a good Mesa Ridge game, or is this a bad Denver South game? And turns out it was a good game on both squads, as they're probably the most evenly matched matchup that got to face twice all year, other than maybe Chatfield and Dakota Ridge. I think that just the way that the teams were built was very, very similar, and the way that they operated was very, very similar. And, that's with a solid quarterback and, with receivers who can make plays, but none quite like can't guard Shad That's at Can't Guard Shad 1. Shout out to Rashad Caldwell, who, oh my god, it was one of my favorite moments of the entire football season, watching them face up against Aurora Central, who's a squad we will talk about. And, this was a game that determined, well, more or less determined the winner of league here in this for a Metro 2 division. And in this game, Joseph Capra, he is, I want to say, is he a 2-star or a 3-star quarterback, Simon? Do you remember? I want to say he's a 2-star guy right now.
2-star guy.
Yeah, 2-star quarterback in Joseph Capra. He hits Caldwell down the left sideline, who just has burners. I mean, this is going to be like the fastest wide receiver senior class that Colorado has seen in my memory, period. I don't remember having multiple receivers built quite like these guys. And Rashad is part of that. He catches this ball, goes down the left sideline, and then he does this celebration where he gets down on the ground and he puts his hands like this, and he's like kicking his legs, just, kind of like this. And Loki was really disrespectful, but I was catching the vibe. Like, Rashad just knows that he's like that, okay? And he's an incredible wideout talent. I mean, on the season, he caught for 1,193 yards, 15 touchdowns, somebody who's more than likely going to end up on our top 5 wide receivers list, and he's 6'2". So, as 6'0", but 2 as in additionally. Sorry, I've got to lose it on you, Simon. He's 6 foot as well. And, with that speed and that size, he's just a huge mismatch for a lot of defenses. And he has a quarterback who can get him the ball. Joseph Capra, he's somebody who can push the ball downfield. He threw 33 touchdowns this year, some of the best in the state of Colorado. It's only 5 picks, too. So, excellent decision maker. I liked a lot of his decisions in the... Oh, hey, check this out. First-time chat from 7678 here. I remember being there for the game for South versus Aurora Central High School. I was benched, so I can't speak much, but they are a really great team. Hope we see them again. And it was a really fun game. It was only a couple of tough mistakes on that Aurora Central squad, like some fumbles that kept them out of this. But, Denver South, kudos to them for playing a very clean game in that, having a very balanced offense with Joseph Capra throwing the rock pretty well. And then, Chevelle early, who's only a sophomore at the tailback position, who racked up 17 touchdowns and ran for over 1,000 yards as a sophomore. So this offense is returning their big three. We always talk about big threes here: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and Denver South has exactly that, and is somebody that it consistently has competed in the past. I think that they probably should have won they probably should have won the spring ball tournament. But, regardless of that, they competed this year, and honestly, I think that with the experience against Montrose, that makes them really dangerous heading into the next season. And I haven't even got to talk about the younger Burke brother, who is a stud on the defensive side of the ball, and Mason was taking notes on him for some of his senior year lists next year. Simon, I just talked about a lot from this Denver South squad, but, I mean, it's only natural since I did get to see them live and know that all of these, stats are one thing, numbers are one thing, but all of the talent that they have backing up these numbers is legit, dude.
Well, yeah, let's talk talent then. I mean, look, you look at their schedule, not a ton of, tough teams here. I mean, Mesa Ridge, they're pretty good, pretty solid, I should say, maybe not pretty good just quite yet. Broomfield, that was a great dub. That really put them on 48-40, in a shootout against Cola Crew. A great quarterback in the same class as Capra. We'll keep an eye on that. I think next year they might be playing again, I want to say. So that might be a game that we need to send somebody to, because that might be big time as well.
Volunteer.
I volunteer as well, because I haven't seen either quarterback play yet, and I need to be on top of that as that guy. But anyways, I'll get there eventually, but that was a big one. And then you have Wheat Ridge, Stanley Lake, Gateway, Kodey, who you slammed pretty bad in our season in review, Grand Junction, Centaurus, who you also slammed in our season in review pretty bad. They beat Aurora Central, like you said, that's huge. And then this was kind of an interesting one. They lost to Vista Peak in the last game of their season, 24-14. I have
no idea why that happened, bro. They should not have lost that game.
Well, I mean, Vista. It's not like Vista Peak sucks. Like they have talent, and I think they made the playoffs too.
They did.
Okay. It might have been close though. But Vista Peak, I mean, they had our number one receiver Jordan Mayfield, plus a couple other weapons over there as well. So, any given day, right? It could happen. So it's not like Vista Peak, like that exposed them. They got exposed. They suck. You're like, nah, Vista Peak has talent too. Just in general, I mean, here's the vibe that we know and that I want to say, honestly, people in Colorado want to deny outside of that Denver area. But, the odds are stacked against Denver players, DPS in general, like the community, all of that. If they could be doubted, they will be. And so we called that out when talking about our playoff preview and said, like, hey, there's really, like, Denver South is better than a lot of teams that are ranked above them in the playoffs. Just gonna be honest, and there's a reason why most of us picked them against Ponderosa even. Or wait a second, not Ponderosa. Am I thinking of someone else? Sorry, Montrose even.
We did pick Aurora Central over Ponderosa, which we'll talk about both of those squads here in a bit as well.
That's right. I was like, wait a second. I knew it was one of these two. But yeah, even I picked them against Montrose, like predicting the bracket and whatnot. And so, it's like, okay, like they're just not getting the respect they deserve. And maybe they won't even going into next year. But just know, like, obviously, we got a lot of respect for them. Joseph Capra, he's a next level quarterback, either D1 or D2. Right now, I kind of see him as a little bit of a Briggs Wheatley type. That's just personally me right now. Not maybe, but just more athletic than Briggs, in my opinion. But we'll see. A big year from Joseph Capra. He could really garner some offers here. Rashad Caldwell, he already has like 1 billion offers. Like the entire damn Ivy League is recruiting him basically.
4.6 GPA, dude.
Yes, he's a smart dude.
Shout out to can't guard Shad, and you can't bring him down with test scores either.
Yeah, no, because literally it's like Columbia, Princeton, Yale, I think. Like you have a number of Ivy Leagues who are looking at this kid and have offered him already for the most part. Now it's just like, all right, like which Colorado school is going to do it? Because if I'm being honest, Northern Colorado should have done it maybe 2 years ago. And then CU and CSU, we know how they feel against Denver players, to be honest with you. So there you go. But that's at least that's how it looks like, because you haven't done anything to really help Denver football. So I'm just going to be real with you, and so we'll see. But Rashad Caldwell is easily a D1 guy, Capra is probably a D1 guy. Chevelle Early, I mean, he's a good player right now, so we'll see, but he's probably a next level player as well. And so this Denver South team has a lot of talent. Losing 56-19 against Montrose, I mean, that's just one of those teams. If you make one or two mistakes early on, they just keep piling it up because all they do is run it. And so, like, if you make one or two mistakes, like on offense, then it's like, oops, you have only 2 drives in the first half. Now what? And you're down by 20. Like, now what? Not only does your offense have to be perfect, but your defense needs to get a stop, and they're going to go for it on 4th down too. So you got to have 4 really good, downs, and that's tough when they just, they're just exhausting you out there. And so we'll see going into next year. But this was an electrifying team throughout this season, honestly. Overlooked because they're a Denver team, honestly. But going into next year, I mean, I expect nothing less. I think that's fair, right? That's fair.
The expectations are sky high for me for Denver South. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I would say that's more than fair, honestly. So there you go. Just keep an eye on those two. But coming up next, I kind of forgot to put this team with the 3A teams, so we're gonna have to drop back to 3A. But let's talk Pueblo South.
Oh, or did I forget to do that? Look, south to south, all right? That's just how it's going to be on this one.
Yes. I could talk about him if you want.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they were just kind of unlucky to start the season is the big thing that I want to say before we jump into their schedule.
Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing, though. Ooh, what a hit by Chase Bell. Oh, my God. But here's the thing, though. Before the season, like we mentioned it briefly, we said they'd have to rely on Chase Bell at quarterback. And then obviously he's going to play on defense as well at corner. But at quarterback, we were like, okay, if Jace Bella goes crazy, like just has a crazy like quarterback season, this Pueblo South team could definitely be a contender. To start the season, definitely a little rough. Holy Family, they lost 34-27. Then Discovery Canyon, I came to that game actually on the it was near the end, like in the fourth quarter, because I was coming back from a Lutheran game, and then I came back in time for this. But they lost to them 21-13 without Jace Bella playing, and that's when he kind of missed a couple games here. But they went on, beat LP 26-7, beat Thomas Jefferson 42-18, beat Green Mountain in a close one, but still beat him 23-21. Forfeit against Canyon City, that went in their favor. Centennial beat them 49-14. And then this last stretch here was when it was like, okay, Jace Bella, he's back, he's healthy. If they're going to run Pueblo, they got to beat these Pueblo teams. That's what it came down to. And so they went ahead, won a close one, a very close one, against Pueblo East 20-19. Turned around and beat down Pueblo Central 35-6 for extra measure. And then they lost kind of a close one to Pueblo County 13-0. But at that point, their spot in the playoffs was secure, so it kind of didn't matter. And then they lost to Holy Family 34-18. We talked about that game. You said that game could probably go either way. That game's a lot closer than it looked, and it's just tough, But honestly, one would definitely have to think, what would happen if Jace Bella was healthy? Because he is arguably the best athlete on this team. Now, you have Ray Aragon and all that as well, who, did his thing at corner and I believe on offense as well. But, you just got to wonder, like, if Jace Bella was healthy, where would this team be? Because even when he wasn't the healthiest on the season, that he threw for 1,148 passing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, only 2 picks. One of those picks was against Pueblo County, who he only had 14 attempts against. And the other one was against Green Mountain, and they still beat them, so it didn't matter. And then he also had 588 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. So, altogether, 18 touchdowns on offense, a little over 1,600, 1,700 total yards, He had a solid season for somebody who was hurt, and honestly, like we said, when it came down to it, it came down to, Jace Bella and his health, and that was just kind of a tough deal for them, honestly, when all was said and done, right, Kodey?
I mean, when your backup quarterback throws 1 touchdown to 5 picks, that's tough. That's really tough. And it looks like, shout out to CJ Dynamic. Thank you for entering in the chat. Like we did say, they were unlucky to start the season, and it looks like some COVID sanctions or some COVID implications. Down 14 dudes in the last, oh my God. That's a lot of players to be out of. Good Lord, that's terrible. So thank you for filling us in on the COVID things. These are things that, we don't necessarily know because, there's no injury report for high school football. Okay, so, we know what the box score tells us. And, losing 14 guys is really tough. Not to mention, this Holy Family team that they did lose to in the playoffs was really good. Jacob Laver had a career game in this one, running for 218 yards and 3 scores. So, A, it's a talented team. B, you're out of a lot of players. And C, that's just, that sucks. That, not to mention, sorry, kind of getting scrambled here a little bit. Responding, it was an exposure to the weeknight game. Wait, they didn't have anyone that was COVID positive. It was an exposure. Okay, so it was like a, quarantine kind of deal, it sounds like, from, let's see, week 9. Is that Pueblo Central? 9, yep, Pueblo Central. So a big win that came at an unlucky cost, I guess. That's something that happened to a handful of teams these past 2 years. That's just, it really just is unlucky. Fairview is a team that had to forfeit a playoff game from COVID, either tests or exposure. And it sucks when it happens and it cheats us out of even better games. But, that's a classic, it is what it is kind of thing. And, despite all that, there's still a lot to be happy about this season. 7-4, not without, 7-4, losing 2 of those games without Bella to start the season. And then, injury slash COVID quarantines impacting these last two. Honestly, there's a lot to be happy about here. And not only did Jace Bella have a phenomenal year, and losing him kind of hurts, especially with a backup quarterback, kind of having a tough out on the quarterback side, but also they're big playmakers in Wray, Aragon, as well as Mateo Escobar. These guys balled out on both sides of the ball. They had 9 combined interceptions between the two of them. Wray with 181 interception return yards, like an absolute manimal. And if I recall correctly, I believe I was told that Wray, he only played 1 year of football. He was a basketball player before that, but then, turned up for the season, catching 435 yards and 4 touchdowns. Mateo Escobar catching 5 touchdowns. So they have playmakers, and, their top 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 receivers, granted, one of them only had a couple of receptions, but their top 7 or 8 receivers are all coming back. They are all not seniors, and there's just a lot of upside on the offensive side of the ball, and with a defense that can force a lot of turnovers through the air, there's a lot to be excited about. It's just who's going to throw them the football this upcoming season is my biggest question mark for this Pueblo South team.
Quarterback is always a big deal, man. And Pueblo, there's always a lot of talent down in Pueblo. All these teams be battling each other. We know what West has done. We obviously know about South. Pueblo South has one of the strongest football cultures in Colorado, period. So, we'll see. They're a team that's going to be like kind of a, I don't want to say a perennial contender, but they're going to be around. Even a down season is like, okay, they're still going to be a couple games over 500 then, and so it's really just next man up. Like, who's going to step up and do their thing? Also, by the way, I was just looking at their huddle. They have this kid, Orion Birch, who is 6'3", 330 pounds as a sophomore at center and guard. Here he is right here, which is, good God, that's wild. But anyways, that's Pueblo South. Look, they got hit by the injury bug, and not just that, but by the COVID bug as well, which not many teams did this season. But when it did, like you said, Kodey, it was definitely pretty. It was pretty devastating. We talked about how Fairview literally made the playoffs, and then they were done. Their season was done. The night before their playoff game and whatnot, that's when they found out their season was done all of a sudden. And so that's just how it goes, sometimes, which is unfortunate. But like you said, it is what it is. So yeah. But that's Pueblo South. Look, they got dudes. They always do. It's Pueblo South. And so going into next year, I'm interested in seeing how they cope without Jace Bella. Obviously, this year, they had plenty of experience, I would say. And so there's probably a couple guys in the running there. But, I don't have too much more to say on Pueblo South. They're a good program over there. That's something that I feel like we don't say enough about Pueblo South, and they also show us a good amount of love too. So
for sure, no, Pueblo South is. Pueblo is just a really good football town.
Yeah,
definitely gets slept on because it is very far away. But they have a good youth development program, which is key for making moves in the postseason and for sending so many teams to the playoffs.
Shout out to Coach Montez and all the Pueblo coaches I met this week that came up to the Springs for league plays with their middle schoolers. So there you go, But yeah, that's Pueblo South though. Next year will be interesting for sure. They always got a lot of talent, so we'll see what goes down for sure. And I believe, want to say, according to what we heard, they're probably going to stay in 3A. So we'll see about that, because there will be a couple new faces in 3A as well. So yeah, but let's keep it going though. Longmont. This is a team that we haven't really talked about, the team in general, because we almost always just talk about Keegan Patterson. And for a good look here. Let's get the Keegan Patterson talk out of the way before we talk about the rest of this team, because obviously we can't talk about Longmont without talking about Keegan Patterson, who is going to USC with Lincoln Riley and all that. Kodey, I'm sure you're super happy about that. After committing to Mines, and so this will be real interesting, because I want to say when we ranked Keegan Patterson, I said he's probably somebody that teams should have kept an eye on, because, you know, if you get a good coach, you could develop him really well, and he could easily be a next-level player. That's what I said. And, you know, I mean, this last season, he showed out. He did his thing. He was like top 10 in the country, I want to say, in some statistical categories. And so, I mean, he's a heck of a quarterback, and he was the engine that not only made this Longmont offense go, but this entire team go. Right, Kodey?
For sure. I mean, he was our number 4 ranked quarterback, I want to say. But he could have been crowned at number 1. There was not a huge gap. He was 3? I thought Briggs was.
No, he was over Briggs, I thought.
Well, regardless, still a top 5 senior quarterback in the state. And, you know, candidate for most valuable playmaker. I believe that... I know I was leaning towards him. I might have even voted for him, because he also had a pick 6 on the year. So, you know, he was able to contribute on both sides of the ball. And, you know, the offers that some of those playmakers got, you know, through this Longmont squad were, you know, kind of in part to, you know, his performance this past season. I mean, look, you don't throw for 28 and run for 20 and not get noticed. And that's on a very solid completion percentage. I call it 67%, over 3,600 yards. I mean, there wasn't really anything that Keegan Patterson couldn't do. He could make all the throws. He had a big arm, and there is a lot to be stoked about. I will probably say that his passing stats were maybe a little bumped with shovel passes that were counted as passing yards to Caleb Johnson, but, you know, that doesn't make a huge difference. And, you know, with that being said, I mean, look, I just talked about these guys on best of the rest for, you know, wide receivers. And, you know, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at exactly which episode that was. But, you know, Jack Mole, excellent jump ball specialist who, you know, mossed a lot of poor kids. I shouldn't be laughing, but, you know, he plays way bigger than he is. You know, he's not a very tall guy, but, you know, he's able to jump up there and adjust to the ball, and just is a very physical receiver who, you know, was just spectacular. It was episode 122, if you want the film breakdowns on Jack Mole and Caleb Johnson. But, you know, Jack, he was somebody who made a lot of plays in the passing game this season and, you know, caught 13 touchdowns. He was the leading touchdown receiver for this Longmont team. And then Caleb Johnson, who is definitely like a gadget player for this Longmont squad, you know, getting 117 receptions for 6 touchdowns and 1,322 yards. I put air quotes around that because a lot of them were shovel passes and more rushing. But regardless, still responsible for 1,322 yards. Not to mention being a big-time threat on special teams. You know, Caleb, he had 634 yards and a kick return for a touchdown in the Dakota Ridge playoff game that I went and saw myself. So, you know, when you have big-time playmakers in those positions, then that goes a long way. And then also, I want to say, is it Justice? Yeah, Justice Lilly, who Mason and I bumped into at the Cherry Creek State game, which was kind of interesting. He was another player who was able to contribute and score in, you know, some big ways on this offense, catching for 763 yards and 8 touchdowns. So, you know, lots of dogs on this Longmont offense. And, you know, we were cheated out of a good game, too, between Erie and Longmont. I don't necessarily know if it's one that they win, but it's one that's a lot closer than 50-6 if they're not playing without Keegan Patterson.
Yes, sadly. Kodey, you did say, though, that Erie runs Longmont, so we had a couple Daddy Erie comments and whatnot, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I can't help it but to just be a smart aleck sometimes. But, Yeah, no, Longmont, they do have to get out of that shadow, though. I mean, look, the problem with Longmont this year was not the offense, dude.
Well, obviously.
I mean,
yeah.
Here how many points they allow in these games. So they lose to start the season, they lose to Chatfield 49-43. Keegan Patterson's going to be putting his hands up. I mean, yeah, Chatfield won state. That's a close game against the state winners. Mm-hmm. Keegan Patterson's going to be like, dude, what the heck is going on? How are we going to allow 49 points to a team that doesn't pass the ball? Bloomfield, 29 points. Windsor, this is one of their... dude, they lost to Windsor 56-22. Jeez. How is Windsor scoring 56 points, bro?
They're running triple option
50 points. Too. Yeah, they're running triple option. Like, Silver Creek. Silver Creek 33 points here. Grand Junction Central 28 points. No disrespect, but I cannot name a single player on Grand Junction Central. And you let them score 28? Their best defensive game of the year comes against Greeley Central that's barely able to field a squad sometimes through ineligibility. And even then, they let them score 14. Shout out to Genoa there for being a part of that 14 and Chino for making it even slightly possible to score 14 points. And then, Loveland, this isn't a scoring team, 35. Monarch, 24? 24 from Monarch, who's a wing T team? What is going on here?
Didn't Monarch have a first-year head coach, too?
Yeah, they did.
So, yeah, that's tough.
Dude, and then, kudos to the defense for stepping up against Broomfield and only allowing them to score 22. I don't know if they're exhausted from their offense scoring so fast and quick, but, Dakota Ridge's offense was like a hot knife through butter. They scored every time they were on the field, basically. And Longmont, I mean, Keegan and Jack and Caleb had to be exhausted by the end of this year. Their usage rate was insane.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But they couldn't generate a pass rush on the defensive side of the ball. This offensive line really wasn't all that for Keegan Patterson. He was running for his life in this Dakota Ridge game. And there's just a lot left to be desired from this Longmont team that had the talent on offense to make a run for state. I'm just going to be straight up.
Absolutely. I mean, even then, with a bad defense, not a bad offense, with a bad defense, they probably could have made a run if the Stars just happened to align exactly perfectly, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, but they would have to average 60 points to do it. Are they capable of it? Yeah, but also the defense, they need to get them the ball back. So there you go as well. I mean, look, I think the beautiful thing we got out of this was just a lot of great plays from this trio of Jack Moll, Caleb Johnson, Keegan Patterson. First off, I need to give a quick shout out. Shout out to my boy, Kyler LaRoe. I actually interviewed him. He played linebacker at Longmont back in 2012, 2013, and whatnot. And then we actually went to school together over at Northern Colorado. And then he was also coaching these Longmont boys. And he said he coached up Keegan, Caleb, Jack, all these dudes, since they were freshmen. And so be on the lookout for that interview. That'll probably drop in the summer. We talk about a little bit about this Longmont team there. Some of the things he instilled in some of these boys, like that fighting attitude, that never say die attitude. And you see a lot of that as they're going. I mean, if it's a shootout, they're going to shoot, If it's a shootout, they're going to shoot, and and they're not going to stop shooting either. And so you got to love that. There are a lot of iconic moments here for Keegan Patterson in this offense because of some of the situations they were put in, unfortunately, But on the bright side, hey, this is Colorado football, baby. I love to see it. It's entertaining football. And this is where, honestly, this is the potential that the state has.
For sure, and I knew that something was brewing over there at Longmont. I coached against them my first year coaching. And I learned that they do this thing with the lights. Anytime they score a touchdown, all their lights start strobing. So if you are prone to teachers or something, don't go to a Longmont game because they score a lot of touchdowns and then their lights go crazy.
Yeah.
So, which it's kind of hype, honestly, but definitely interesting. And speaking on this defense, Simon, you said they got to get the ball back to the offense. Caleb Johnson was the leading interception guy with 2. So he would have to get the ball himself on the defensive side of the ball. Jack Mole led with 2 fumble recoveries. Keegan Patterson returned 1 fumble to the house. Yes. So the same guys who are making the plays on offense, they have to cook the food, they have to eat the food, they have to clean up the meal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
that's
these
not
sustainable
for the entire season.
Yeah, no, for sure. And these 3 guys are starters on defense too. I want to say that's what me and Kyler talked about, because Kyler is a defensive guy, or Coach LaRoe, whatever. Sorry, I'm calling him Kyler because that's my boy. Coach LaRoe, Kyler. I mean, we talked about it, and it's tough, but I mean, they were just built differently when everything was said and done, and to do that on the 4A level is hard. It is. You have great competition, obviously. Ooh, I think Leon just lit up Keegan Patterson on this play I just watched here. Leon Ramirez from Central here. But, that's just who they are. Longmont, they had some very special players in these 3. And more. Justice Lilly as well. I got to give him a shout out. And then some of these other guys, too. Going into next year, it's not going to be the same team because you don't have that offense anymore. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Longmont. But if anything, this year they were electrifying to watch. If Keegan Patterson was playing, they're gonna turn up. Simple.
Electrify.
But is there? All right. Well, you know what? We're just gonna move on. I'm not even gonna ask you. Let's move on to another 4A team here and talk about Aurora Central. Yeah, let's talk about Aurora Central. I'm actually going to play some Kyrie's Kirby highlights.
Yes.
I feel like we play Marcus Howard highlights a million times whenever possible. So we'll give his teammates some love here. Because here's the deal with Aurora Central. So obviously, Kodey, you got to see the better game they played against Denver South. That was a close one. I got to see them in their season opener, and this wasn't planned because I was originally up in Aurora watching DJ Bordeaux and his team play, and then I saw, oh shoot, Falcon is playing Aurora Central, and before all this stuff happened with Falcon, obviously I was a teacher there and I had connections, so I wanted to see some of my old students, but I also wanted to see Aurora Central. I knew that they had to have somebody out here. They had to, because Aurora has a lot of talent just in general, and so I went to this game, and they lost 14-6. But I remember the thing that really stood out to me, and I haven't talked about this really on the podcast. I feel like I've talked about it in a couple conversations here. But the thing that really stood out to me about Aurora Central was damn, do they have talent. I'm talking Kyrie's Kirby, Simeon Beasley, Marcus Howard stood out to me. I remember looking through the roster, and I was like, God, 6'6", 6'5", 220, tight end, defensive end, okay. And then he had the quietest game of the season there. But you still saw him out there, doing his thing and all that. And so I remember watching his team and being like, oh,
Brian Weatherford, too, that linebacker.
Yep, we'll do his breakdown soon here. I noticed him as well. I was like, okay, Aurora Central. I followed my gut, and I was right. They have talent here. And I remember watching that Falcon game and just being like, Falcon shouldn't have won this game. Honestly, they just shouldn't have. There really wasn't any universe except for the one that I was in currently where Falcon beat them. Any other universe, no. Play Falcon at the end of the season after that Denver South game. I don't think they even come close, to be completely honest with you. I think Aurora Central runs it. And, after that Falcon game, that's what they did. They beat Hinckley 55-0, beat Wheatridge 31-0, beat Adams City 28-13, dropped 74 points on Lincoln. Oh my God, 74. And then 48-0 against Grand Junction, 27-7 against a solid Vista Peak team, 42-0 against Gateway. Then you had that Denver South game, then Centaurus, and then obviously you had that playoff game against Ponderosa, which we all picked Aurora Central to win, but obviously that's tough playing an away game against a team that's not horrible. They're pretty solid, and we'll talk about them later here. But, Aurora Central has so much talent. Obviously this year, you're losing Marcus Howard, you're losing Weatherford, but you're returning Kyrie's Kirby, and Simeon Beasley as well. Plus, I believe Malachi Unit, shout out to EPO, he's an EPO guy. He's on this team as well at receiver. And so they got talent, and this year they had talent. Started a little rough, but man, did they dominate. Kodey, you got to see them against Denver South. And, we've obviously followed this team. What do you think about Aurora Central here? Also, shout out to Aurora Central for giving us so much love, too. Y'all are, we got y'all whenever. I hope y'all know that. We'll be pushing y'all's players. We do that anyways. But we'll be pushing them for real, though.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, we are going to be breaking down some players. Literally tomorrow, Mason has Brandon Weatherford, who is a 2023 lineman, and Lorenzo Johnson, who, invited us to the Aurora Central and Denver South game, and we really appreciated the invite, and he made sure that we got in the doors and whatnot. By that point, we did have the press passes set up, but it was still cool to be sent tickets and scan in, and watch what was a really good game. So shout out to those guys. You guys will be getting your breakdowns tomorrow. Mason Austin has already recorded it, and he runs through a bit fast, so make sure that you're listening close, but he will tell you exactly what you need to work on. But this Aurora Central squad, very, very proud of this squad. Absolute dogs everywhere you look. Like I said, there's also Brian Weatherford. I would assume that he's probably related to Brandon, honestly, who, will be playing ball on the next level. Marcus Howard, who was, one of our top-ranked edge rushers. He's going to be playing for Northern Colorado on the next level. 26 tackles for loss, and the state leader in sacks with 23. 23 sacks is ridiculous, dude. Holy crap. He was just destroying entire teams by himself. And this squad also produced 12 interceptions. They were able to force turnovers in a lot of different ways. And, I'm very excited for Beasley and what his future holds. He was somebody who I was kind of looking at during, the season preview. I was like, hey, wait a second. He had himself a pretty good year, that COVID year. And Kyrie's Kirby, hey, he's somebody who had a pretty good year. Let's watch their film. And I did their program Spotlight, I remember. And that's how we ended up getting invited to this game. And I was like, wait a second. They have some pretty insane athletes on this Aurora Central squad. And, that's exactly what carried them through. Kyrie's Kirby is somebody to watch for in our top 5 senior running backs list. He's so explosive and he's so well-sized. And, another thing is, this is where the struggles start to come in a little bit. He was probably the best quarterback on this team, which is tough because that's just not the position he was and not really his role. But, he came in handy for some trick plays, threw some deep darts down the field to Marcus Howard, who would also come over and play some tight end at that, 6'5", 6'6" frame. And, that was something that helped this Aurora Central team really produce, really put up some good games. And I will say in this Denver South game, it was just missed opportunities. It was a fumble on the goal line, where right there, if you turn that into points from literally the 1 yard line, then it's a 28-39 game. And then it's being in the red zone and not quite converting that makes it a, maybe you kick a field goal and it's a 31-39 and it's one score. So just some seriously missed opportunities and being held back a little bit here by the quarterback play. But before I jump into that, I am going to focus here on Big 7678. I've been waiting on this one. Love my team. So athletically gifted. Kirby, Beasley, Howard, Lorenzo Johnson this upcoming season. Hoping to be in some of those highlights. So thank you for tuning into the stream. Thank you so much for your patience. And just loaded athletically. And a lot of these Aurora squads are. But, shout out to the coach over there. I have, met him and gave him huge props for, turning this program around and, getting some discipline and some accountability in these guys and showing, hey, we can ball too. And I know that he's an adaptive coach because, look, it isn't anyone's first choice to really have to run a wing T. And, we've even talked about, he's like, I'm doing the most I can with what I've got. And, during, there was an incident earlier this year, I reached out to him over Twitter like, hey, you guys need anything? And we got you both on and off the field. But the only concern I do have for this Aurora Central squad, they're solid. Losing Marcus Howard, that sucks. It's hard to replace that, and then Brian Weatherford as well. But, on the offensive line, they got some dogs. They got some guys in the backfield. what is Portillo the answer at quarterback? Now, he did show improvement, and, it was his first year playing quarterback. I'm pretty sure he was, like, a defensive player the year before, and his older brother, Portillo, was an offensive/defensive lineman who I believe Mason broke down, from the 2020 season. So, there's a little bit of program history, but...
Breakdown, Kodey.
Or it was your breakdown?
Yeah, he
was
my
bad.
One of the first guys I did. Yeah, no, you're good. Well, maybe he was Mason, but I'm pretty sure
it's on your episode, though, because there was a time when Mason didn't release episodes, so...
Oh, maybe it was. I knew for a fact I had notes on him, though. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, but, Portillo, for his first year, nearly 70% completion percentage, 32 of 46, 6 touchdowns, 5 picks. This looks, it looks okay. It looks like a quarterback that can potentially, with the right talent, lead you to an 8-3 season. Probably should have been a 9-2 season, but regardless, a quarterback that can do that for you. But is this a quarterback that you can win a state championship with? This is where the hard questions start to get asked, and this is where you're down in the fourth quarter to Denver South, and you kind of only have play action boots that you can consistently hit, and even then, sometimes missing some flat throws. That's tough. You end up getting outgunned by a quarterback in Andrew Heidel at Ponderosa. Look, it was his first year starting, cut him some slack, obviously, but I am going to try and call him up, or, someone in this program to step up at the quarterback position and, help bring some balance to this offense who, they can run the ball. They ran for over 3,000 yards as a unit last year, but not throwing for over 1,000 yards on the passing game, that is tough. And definitely something that has me a little worried about their chances on maybe being a contender. I still think that this is a playoff team, but I don't know about a contender, and I don't know if they'll be able to close that gap in the league. If they're still in that league with Denver South, I forget. I think they might have actually moved leagues. But, if they are in a league that has a good quarterback, are they going to be able to overtake this quarterback for a league title? I'm not sure. Simon, what are your thoughts on that? And how excited are you for Mason's episode tomorrow?
Well, I'm always excited for Mason's episodes, but also I think they are projected to be in the same league. I'd have to double check that list, but I'm pretty sure they are. I'm pretty sure Aurora Central will be playing Denver South again. And honestly, if they do stay in the same league, I don't see too many threats here. Maybe Vista Peak, but they are losing kind of a lot, to be honest with you. Gateway maybe takes a step forward, but I don't think enough to beat a Kyrie's Kirby and all these guys, And so really, I think when it comes down to it, league play might come down to beating Denver South again. And look, we're going to be seeing a lot of the same teams, but Aurora Central is losing a pass rusher in Marcus Howard, who I'm sure got after Capra a couple of times, if not sacking and getting some pressures. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see where this Aurora Central team is. But regardless, they have talent. And I think we've been known that. I knew that going into the Falcon game. I was almost positive. I was like, all right, I'm going to find a couple gems here. That's the plan. And it felt like a gold mine because I found a couple guys. Not just one or two, but it felt like 4 or 5 at some point. And so we'll just have to see, going into next year, who will continue to develop. I think you're right, at quarterback, it needs to be stabilized just a little bit here. Kyrie's Kirby, watching through his highlights here, I'm like, golly, this dude could play. Some of these long runs he's breaking off, he's out of there, and the vision is so good, and the top end speed and all, he's a heck of a player. And so to remove him from that ball carrier spot and put him at quarterback, I don't know. We'll see. But I'd rather just stick with Portillo and get him developed, or maybe you could come to EPO and not that we're sponsored or anything, but go to a place like EPO. It is the cheapest, and get right. Learn from some other great quarterbacks and compete, and really get that stuff going, because I think this Aurora Central team has a lot of potential moving forward. Even this team, they had a lot of potential, but they showed what they could do. And honestly, I mean, losing by 15 to Ponderosa, that's not bad. It kind of felt like maybe it was a little bit of an off day because one time I watched Ponderosa, they weren't like super impressive. So there you go. But yeah, I mean that's really all I gotta say about Aurora Central here, Kodey.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to going out to some of their games next year and watching Kyrie's Kirby live. We've all seen Kyrie's Kirby live, and we're all agreed that he's an insane athlete.
Yeah, so he just sticks out, honestly.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think that this is the last team that we're going to talk about on the 4A level, and that is the team that topped Aurora Central. And this is a team that, it was a tale of two different sets of eyes, for sure, here at Playmakers Corner, because you have Simon, who wasn't overwhelmed by, the performance of Ponderosa in a Vista Peak game. But then Mason, who was like, they were a pretty deep squad, who was talented at a lot of positions in a Palmer Ridge loss, one that they did kind of blow a lead in, but, nonetheless still competed against, Palmer Ridge squad that was in, like, the Elite Eight, I want to say. So, Simon, you talked about this on your recap of Vista Peak Prep. You said that this was not a fun game to go watch, but, we got to see this freshman quarterback, another one of those guys to keep an eye on, especially newcomer of the year candidates and whatnot, in Andrew Heidel out of Ponderosa High School. I mean, look, we got to see him at TFG, and, we were able to recognize him and say, hey, he looks pretty all right. And I think that as he is given more of the keys to this offense, and it looks like he had, some growing pains this freshman year for sure. Hopefully he learns a lot from that, and it sounds like he's pretty focused this offseason on becoming a better quarterback. And hopefully this entire offense is able to then take a bit of a step forward, Like, think about it. Aurora Central, they had over 3,200 total yards on offense. This offense had 3,100 yards, period. Like, Aurora Central had 3,200 rushing yards, I should say. This Ponderosa squad put together like 3,100 total yards. But they're young at the quarterback position, and this is going to be a very young team next year. But let's talk about some things that they did well this year. And so, talking about, obviously, Andrew Heidel, can't say enough about him being a freshman quarterback and throwing 16 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions and nearly 1,500 yards. He got plenty of work, and he needs to get his completion percentage up a little bit, but, still a solid season, and he was partially able to do that because Alex Tongren was just a genetic mismatch for opposing teams at 6'7", 208 pounds, at least listed on his, max preps. He was a freaking monster, and just somebody who, with a massive catch radius, I definitely think helped Andrew Heidel gain some confidence, catching for nearly 600 yards and 7 scores this year. He's definitely built like a tight end, and was just a mismatch on the outside, and somebody who I did kind of take a look at here in our in our wide receiver list here, and is somebody that if he requests a breakdown, I'd be more than happy to oblige. But they had some things going on the offensive side of the ball, but really I think that this defense was pretty impressive this year. With notwithstanding the very first game of the year that they played, that I was like, oh, what's this going to be like? They did topple a 5A squad in Fort Collins and another 5A squad in Chaparral in back-to-back weeks that led to, this little streak here of 5 wins before, losing to that Palmer Ridge squad. But, I mean, look, they held Vista Ridge, one of the best offenses in Colorado, to 10 points. They held this Montrose offense to 19 points. They held this Aurora Central squad to 14 points. Just playing phenomenal run defense, honestly, against a handful of these teams. And, stepping up kind of when it mattered. They were helped out by strength of schedule a little bit. But beating 5A teams as a 4A squad, I definitely think Ponderosa is in that weird kind of in-between where they could fall into 5A classification, but play at the 4A level and do pretty well. I mean, they had a senior in Porter here, who racked up 125 tackles, one of the best tacklers in the state. They have a junior who's going to be coming back in Rodriguez, who had 15 tackles for loss, and 5 of those being sacks. And, quite a few interceptions, generated 16. And Porter there, who led the team in tackles, mind you, also led this team with 4 interceptions. So definitely that front 7 stepping up and making some noise here for Ponderosa to make the playoffs, and then, continue to make some noise. Whoa, that's weird. Why does Max Mervin's... What the heck? Okay, no, his Max Preps is wrong. It says Chaparral High School for some reason, but he's definitely at Ponderosa. Max Mervin being a freshman wide receiver who Andrew Heidel will get to probably build an excellent rapport with.
Yeah, I mean, there's not too much more to add here.
Tell us what the ugly is. I talked about the good and some of the bad, but what's the ugly here for this Ponderosa squad that you saw, Simon?
Well, here, granted, it was kind of earlier on. It was their homecoming game that I saw against Vista Peak, and I remember watching this and thinking they should not have won this game. The number of mistakes that happened in this game was bad. I left when it was 14-0 or 21-0 in the fourth quarter. I was just Vista Peak is not capitalizing on anything, and it also felt like there are a million penalties thrown. And also, this was a game where Andrew Heidel was actually taken out at halftime, even though they're only up by 2 scores. And so I was just I remember watching it and just being God, I can't, I can't watch another one of these games. And Ponderosa, they're not a bad team. I mean, they're a pretty solid team overall, but there are definitely flashes of them just not doing as well as they could at times. That Palmer Ridge game, they're up by 21 at one point, and they let them come they did let them come pretty much all the way back. And in the second half, because I believe they had Palmer Ridge at 0 points at halftime or something like that. And so they lost that game 35-28, blowing a 21-point lead. So, it's stuff like that, Vista Peak, where I'm I don't know. I don't know. But they got better. This Vista Ridge game, they only lost 10-7. Only lost to Montrose 19-14, I mean, this is a team that grew as the season went on, even though you did see some losses. Now, they did lose to the eventual state champs, Chatfield 31-9, but I think they have some good pieces they're going to work around here. You have Heidel, you have Max Mervin for sure, and you can live with that. But they are losing some pretty key players. Zachary Pekarik, both as a running back and linebacker, did a lot for them as a running back. He was basically their workhorse, man. I don't think he gets enough credit at all. But Pekarik, he put in work throughout the season. He was probably their most consistent player, in my honest opinion here. 91 rushing yards a game, 92 basically, 10 tackles a game. I mean, he was playing both sides, and so I know he is going to play football on the next level, and I think he's just a very underrated athlete that Ponderosa is for sure going to miss. Also along with Brady Porter, who was their linebacker, right? I'm pretty sure he was a senior, I want to say. He is a senior this year.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 10.4 tackles a game, had 4 picks, led the team in interceptions. And then you have Alex Tolgren as well, 7 interceptions. And also, you can't replace 6'7". That's just hard to do. And then I believe there's also a tackle or guard that Ponderosa's graduating that received a scholarship to Northern Colorado. So he's a D1 lineman that they're losing. So you have a lot of guys.
They also lost some linemen. They had a few linemen who were seniors because there was this one other one who's playing at or 2 other ones between the offensive and defensive line playing at Nebraska Kearney. Learned that in research for my request episode.
Yeah. So I mean, but like you said, I mean, they're losing a lot of guys, especially on that front line this next year. So going into next year will be interesting. Because this year, I mean, it kind of felt like it was going to be like a little bit of a rebuild year, but they found some people, in Heidel and Mervin and all that, some playmakers. And so you could be happy with that. But for the most part, it's it's like I don't know, man. Like we'll see about them going forward. But they've been doubted before by us. You know, they've also proved us right or proved us wrong. My bad. Proved us wrong before as well. So we'll just have to see about them moving forward here. Honestly, I don't have too much more to say about Ponderosa here. I mean, they're always a pretty solid program, and so they're gonna bounce back eventually. But this year, it definitely felt a little of an overachieving year, despite having a lot of seniors on that front seven. You know.
Yeah.
So there you go. But let's keep it going here. You know, we have a couple of teams left. I know we said we would look at our TikTok, and we still could, you know, but we definitely scrolled.
This is running a little long for sure.
Yeah,
so,
but that's okay. We definitely scrolled through and found a lot of guys or a lot of teams to cover and whatnot, and so we could always do another part to this next week or whatever. But anyways, here we have Columbine here. Kodey, do you mind if I go ahead and get this party started? Talking about Columbine,
go for it.
Our first 5A school.
We already know what we're gonna say, but
yeah, I mean it goes kind of the same. So I know here's the deal with the 5A season in review. The 5A season in review TikTok. Sorry, I couldn't get that right. Those will be coming out this week. The teams we cover. Well, it's not Columbine because obviously, if we were, then they would be up in there. But the teams we obviously cover is Valor Christian in multiple parts, so that's gonna get a lot of hate. I already know it. So whatever, you know, our DMs will be closed. But Valor Christian, Cherry Creek, we have 2 parts there. Arapahoe, Douglas County, Fairview, Grandview, Thunder Ridge, and that's it. So we have a couple 5A teams to talk about, and so if you just heard one of those 5A teams we said, we already talked about them, so you can check out that episode. That's episode 101. Those TikToks will be dropping soon. So once again, that's Arapahoe, Cherry Creek, Valor Christian, Douglas County, Grandview, and then Thunder Ridge is what I already said. So yeah, but let's go ahead and talk about Columbine here. I mean, look. 9-4 on the season. This is a team that doesn't really pass it, and it would help them if they passed it because they have so much talent on defense. Defensively, we knew they'd be strong. Offensively, we knew they were going to run the ball. You just saw Seth Cromwell here just put someone in the dirt. We knew they were going to give it to Seth Cromwell anywhere between 20 to 30 times a game as a runner. And then he's also playing defense as well, so just keep that in mind. And so we knew that they were going to rely on him, and there's probably going to be 1 or 2 other backs. Maybe they have the quarterback who run out on a couple. Maybe they trust another back who ended up being a Tyree trustee run it and do his thing as well. And so, honestly, it's really just the same thing with Columbine each year. Like, we know they're not going to, like, just because we don't talk about them doesn't mean like we think they're going to be
Josh
bad.
Schneider too at tailback. He's also pretty dang
he's
good.
there as well. But I mean, here the thing with Columbine is that we know they're going to be good. We know they're going to be physical. They're going to play tough defense. You know, they do usually always a good job on defense. Then they're going to run the ball, and that's pretty much it. And then even when running the ball, you're not going to see a lot of creativity there, and that's what they did. I mean, Denver East. On the season they went 9-4. But to start the season, they played Denver East, who they beat 42-21. Played Cherokee Trail, beat 52-21. Played Faith Lutheran, which is in Vegas, by the way, beat them 21-11. That's a quality win there. Beat Highland Trench 49-21. Played Valor Christian, gave them a scare. You're seeing some Valor highlights right here, but beat them 35-21. They basically run the same, offense. And honestly, I wouldn't have been surprised if they beat Valor Christian. I think a lot of people kind of just assumed that Valor was going to win because of Gavin Sawchuk, but I really wouldn't have been surprised if Columbine beat them. So I'm just throwing that out there. Then they lost to Arvada West, who we'll talk about here later, 24-21. Beat Lakewood 56-13. Beat Mullen 28-14. Lost to Ralston Valley, who did do a couple of the things they do, but they were, we saw some character development from Ralston Valley, and so we'll talk about that in a little bit. But, they lost to Ralston 35-14. Then they beat Pomona 20-6 I don't even think they had Cromwell playing that game, so that's a little embarrassing. And then they played Far Northeast in the playoffs. They passed it for once in these, for the most part. Won 56-0. Beat Arvada West in the rematch, 38-21. They didn't have their quarterback, though. They were playing a freshman. And then lost to Valor again by only 2 scores, 17-7. Like I said, wouldn't have been surprised if they beat Valor. I think that's just something I did not say enough of and didn't give Columbine enough credit, because when it comes down to it, Columbine does play pretty good defense. I think the bigger question is, are they going to keep up on offense? I mean, Kodey, is there anything it's hard to rely on just your running back to produce all of your to be your offense, basically.
Look, they have athletes who can catch the ball. I mean, Tyree Frusty can catch the ball. Wes Jones is somebody who I think was very underutilized on the offensive side of the ball, and who honestly could have been a pretty big playmaker at receiver. I don't have any doubts about that. I mean, look, even in this Columbine offense, he got for 308 yards and 4 scores. That's incredible efficiency. It looks like Daniel Alafeo, I want to say, he caught for over 100 yards. I mean, there's people who can catch the dang ball, not to mention their underclassmen like James Bossinger, who he's a dog on both sides of the ball, and he's somebody who could be a big play threat out of the slot and a complete mismatch against linebackers with his combination of precisiveness and speed. But we'll never get to know that. That's just the truth. And look, they lost to Ralston Valley, and I watched the highlights from this game. Ralston Valley, whether they want to agree to this or not, they listened to what we had to say, and they spread it out this year, and they threw the ball pretty well. And in this Columbine game, they kind of put it to them. And I think part of that is, just the versatility. I mean, look, Ralston Valley and Columbine, this game 2 years ago would have been a snooze fest, like 21-14 or something. By the way, Ralston Valley hit like a 56-yard field goal in this game, which is freaking nuts. I was losing my mind over that. But anyways, Ralston Valley, they adapted and they played very well against Columbine. And, they played well against Grandview and would have probably been a really tough draw for this Valor Christian squad. Look, it's fun to... No, it's not fun. It's cool to play mistake-free football and not risk throwing interceptions. But being one-dimensional, look, you guys almost beat Valor, but I think you and Valor reached the same fate in the state championship game against a Creek team that just has answers for whatever's thrown at them, and you need versatility to be a tough draw for Creek.
Yeah.
And I mean, and your defense is better than Valor's defense too. I'm just going to be straight up. The Columbine defense is better than Valor's defense, but the offense is what held them back this year. And I really don't have too much else to say. I don't have anything else to say, actually.
Okay. Well, there you go. I mean, where they finish in the playoffs, like you said, definitely expected. They could have went to state. I don't think they're beating Cherry Creek, though. I think when it comes down to it, Cherry Creek, I mean, they got a very good defense as well, and I think they just match up better with this Columbine defense than that Columbine defense would have matched up against the likes of Coyote Jr., Hammond at quarterback, and Isha Cece. So, I don't think they had anybody that could have covered Ishmael Cece 101. So there you go there. So... it's just a better system. What?
Well, one thing too is like an argument can be made like, well, we can't spread it out with Brock. Here's the thing, Columbine, you've earned the reputation where quarterbacks don't want to go to your school.
Yeah.
Why would I go to a school where I'm never going to throw the ball if I'm a good quarterback? And there's plenty of good quarterbacks in the West Littleton area. Sorry, what?
I was just going to say, that's before, I know that we advise a lot, not just quarterbacks, but a lot of young athletes about schools where to go, especially in this Littleton, Denver area, because there's a lot of schools that are right next to each other. I don't know why, but they just are, and so we advise kids, but most people know if you want to be a passer Or if you want to be a receiver, don't go to Columbine. If you want to be a great defensive player and lineman and maybe running back, go to Columbine. But if you're a quarterback or a receiver, if you're a quarterback or a receiver, then forget it. You're why? They haven't changed in 20 years. And this isn't hating on them because they do this brand of football very well. Play a physical brand. I'm talking their linemen are very good, offensive and defensive linemen. Defensively, they're very good. They see other systems, ironically, other offensive systems, and they find a way to combat those. But when it comes to offense, it's very, very simplistic. And I think at the end of the day, there's probably going to be a day where Columbine wins a state championship. But compared to other seasons where they could have won a state championship as well, I don't know if it will be worth it. But they'll do what they do, And so I don't think that's going to change this year or next year. I think they're probably going to either make it to state. I don't know. Well, I don't know about make it to state. They might. I don't know. But we'll just have to see if they make it. I don't know if they're going to win it. So, there you go. Alright, you want to move on, Kodey? We could talk about another team that's similar here. Not that that makes anything better.
Let's keep talking about the 5A teams who can't pass.
Alright, so speaking of 5A, let's talk about Pomona here. I'm playing Dom Nichols highlights because, hey, I tried looking at some of your other players who I know play for the full season, and they don't have any highlights in something like this, which is weird. So I'll work on that. But Pomona, new head coach, they lost
Johnson.
Dom Nichols, Johnson, your boy. But they lost Dom Nichols to Vista Ridge. Chassa did some things that we don't agree with at all, and so he eventually came back.
Shout out to the whiny babies who can't handle competition in the springs.
Yeah, but we don't need to.
We'll leave it at that.
Hit that bush again, please. But anyways, here's Pomona. They started the season against Grandview, who had a first-year head coach of their own, and they lost the Thriller 30-29. So there is some hope. It's not like Pomona didn't have talent. Dion Mays, he was out here. He was putting in work. Chase Miller, he made a lot of big plays. The quarterback Epley, he has made some plays throughout this season as well. And so it's not like Pomona just all of a sudden didn't have talent, once Dom left. They had plenty of talent. They were probably going to be fine. They were probably going to make the playoffs with or without it. Potentially. It would have been closer, though. And then also, on the line, Aaron Karras. You had also a pretty good linebacker out there as well. This Pomona team had talent, but we knew what they were made of. They were basically going to do what Columbine does. On the ball, play good defense, and that's basically it. I mean, offensively, though, I would say they have a little bit more talent, a little bit more juice with their athletes, and they spread the ball out a little bit more. Not that much more, but a little bit more. And so losing the Grandview game, that's tough. After that, though, they had to play Cherry Creek, which they weren't going to win. They lost 31-0. Beat Doherty, but everyone does. They still beat him 44-14. Beat Legacy, who was a low-key. They had players there, so this wasn't a surprise. In hindsight, it wasn't a surprise that they, beat them by a score, which they beat 26-20. Lost to Smoky Hill, which is interesting.
Powers.
What did you say?
I said, put some respect on Bowers.
No, I was about to. Which is interesting still, because Leslie Richardson is like a 3 or 4 year starter, and their quarterback at Smoky Hill was a 1 year starter, and he was still enough to beat Pomona. And so they beat them, or Smoky Hill beat Pomona 28-27. There was definitely some red flags and alarms going off here. Just a little bit here. But bounce back, beat Lakewood 49-7. Beat Ralston Valley, which I don't think many people thought, 17-3. Like I said, they run kind of similar offenses and schemes and whatever, so there you go. Beat Arvada West 42-14. Beat Mullen 21-7. Lost that weird one to Columbine 28-6. We were there for that too, so I don't know what happened. Maybe they just
it's like a
didn't
nap
care.
in the stands.
Yeah, I don't know. It was the last game of the season, so it probably didn't matter. So there you go. Then we came back the next week, regardless of what happened, and we watched them play Castleview, who they beat 14-7. Even though Castleview, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, they could have won that game, but the quarterback couldn't complete a screen or a couple plays, and that's not disrespect. That's what happened, by the way, because I know he's making some noise out there. So check yourself before you wreck yourself, because we could pull up a lot of receipts here, because this is what happened in a game that matters. So they lost to them. And then Regis Jesuit, this was kind of a game that we felt like, okay, they got Dom back. Wouldn't have been surprised if they beat Regis, but they lost a close one, 28-21 here. Let me just click on this box score here as well. But that's probably a game that they could have won here. I mean, Chase Muller had 91 rushing yards, a touchdown. Steven Gartman, 45 yards, a touchdown. Dom, only 5 carries, but 22 yards and a touchdown. And then Xavier Carroll, he had 2 touchdowns and 94 rushing yards. Then Xavier Carroll, as a quarterback, had 136 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Oof. So, there you go. I mean, Pomona, I don't know. I think this is kind of the season I expected from them. If Dom didn't come back, maybe this season's a little bit different here. I'm just going to be honest with you. So there you go. But Kodey, what do you think about their season here?
So I knew that the defense was going to be good. Look, Johnson, he does have a way of knowing defense. He knows how to talk to defensive players really well. He's going to have some solid linebackers, and the talent was there to have a solid defensive squad, and I think that they delivered on that. I mean, outside of a couple of hiccups, I mean, holding Ralston Valley to 3 points is big time. Holding Arvada West to 14 is big time, and holding Mullen to 7. Those are all very good. It was just lacking on offense. Now, I won't say that I had the utmost confidence in their quarterback. He definitely missed some pretty easy passes. That first game that we went to against Columbine, there were some passes where it's like, why are you throwing that? Where are you going? You're lost, kind of thing. But, if they were able to really get this dual kind of tailback tandem going, I mean, look, Muller had himself a pretty solid season, 1,228 yards, not really getting into the end zone all that much with only 6 scores, but, averaging nearly 7 yards per carry. And then if you can get, that boom back and Dom Nichols going, who averaged 9 yards per carry, you had a pretty solid backfield, and you could probably make that work a little bit. But I think that ultimately not having a great quarterback costs you some games, and then Pomona lived up to their reputation, and I think that was the goal, because they had a coach who was there for a very, very, very long time. And a coach who, was frustrated for a few years. I mean, look, Pomona lost to Valor Christian in the 2015 and 2016 state championships, right? So he lost those 2 games before finally getting his championship against Eagle Crest. I mean, the offense that they had here in 2017 is not something that we have seen at Pomona since. I'm just going to read out their scoring numbers from the year that they won state in the playoffs. 68, 48, 42, 56. Bro, they're averaging like 50 points a game. 50 points a game in this playoff series. They did not crack 50 this year. Obviously, some of that comes down to talent, but also some of that comes down to adapting and changing. And look, you got to find a way to score points. And it's not 2017 anymore. You know what I mean? If you're running the same offense as you were in 2017 and it's not working, you have to try something else. But also, they had a quarterback that year that threw 27 touchdowns. You have to throw the ball to win in modern football. And that's what they did for a state championship, and that's something that they're going to have to do if they want to be relevant as a contender. Enough said. Also, Columbine last won a state championship in 2011, for those who are curious. The times are changing. And you gotta, if you want to compete, Don't get left behind. Was that a long enough tangent for you, Coach V?
If you want to compete, can't be left behind. Yep, that is more than fair. And so, I mean, I don't know, bro. Let's just move on. I don't know what else to say about Pomona here, but, I mean, you got to open up this this offense and got to get something going because they have talent there. The frustrating part is it's just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I mean, it's just not clicking, that they need to pass it and be multidimensional. So anyways,
this next team is multidimensional, though. Isn't it, Simon?
It is very multidimensional, and we're going to keep on it. We're going to keep it going and give Arvada some love here. Now that I'm looking at this list, we did not give Arvada as much love as possible. And so
these next two teams are Arvada teams, Lamau, and so is Pomona. So
yes. So we're gonna do it here and talk about Arvada West. Look, I didn't expect them to be this good this year, straight up, and I think a lot of people didn't because the previous year they were like 2-5 or something like that. This year they were 8-3 behind a very good passing offense. Honestly, I mean, look, let me just read off some of these dubs here. 43-7 against Wheat Ridge to open up the season. They won that one. Legacy, 23-10. They have some guys over there. Horizon, I mean, they have some players, but they still beat them 42-0. Now, came back to earth against a Cherry Creek team who admittedly lost to a powerhouse in Chandler High School, like a national powerhouse in Chandler High School the week before. But, 52-21. I think they're one of the few teams that scored 3 touchdowns on Cherry Creek, so that's pretty good. After that, bounced back and out-dueled Fossil Ridge, beat them 42-21. That's probably a game we should talk, or a team we should talk about another time, Fossil Ridge, to be honest with you. But keeping it going, beat Columbine 24-21 in a close one, beat Mullen 35-14 in a close one, lost to Pomona 42-14, that's kind of tough there, and then played Lakewood, beat them 42-21, beat Ralston Valley, which was a shocker at the time, 17-10. Love to see that, but at a cost, as their quarterback would tear his ACL and be done for the season.
This is hip.
Or wait, sorry, I thought it was his ACL for some reason. Was it his hip?
I think he dislocated his hip or broke his hip or something like that.
Well,
I believe
it was something devastating,
which is not good. Yeah, no, very bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Usually, it was definitely an injury where if it happened at the beginning of the season, he still wouldn't have played at the end of the season, even if they made the playoffs. So it was
exactly
pretty bad. They had a first-round bye in the playoffs, but ultimately it didn't matter as they were starting a freshman quarterback. And so they lost to Columbine, not too bad though, 38-21. And so a lot of things to like about Arvada West. And I think it starts with their offense, their quarterback, their junior quarterback, who hopefully is recovering and he's going to come back next year. Ethan Cook, on the season, 1,857 yards, about a 58% completion rating, threw 20 touchdowns to 7 interceptions here, man. Also had 232 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. His lead receiver, Martinez, 709 receiving yards, 12 touchdowns. He'll be coming back next year as well. And so this Arvada West offense was cooking, man. I mean, they were pretty good, and that's what you like to see here. I mean, They were scheming very well against some of these teams. I mean, a lot of quality dubs against Columbine. I even throw Fossil Ridge in there. Ralston Valley. I mean, you did lose to Pomona 42-14. I don't know what happened there. And then in Cherry Creek, I mean, there's worse. Showings against Cherry Creek, but they beat them 52-21. So Arvada West, a team I kind of like a lot. I'm excited for their future. Hope their quarterback Ethan Cook is recovering, because actually, Kodey, I think next year the home opener, either the home opener or the first game of the season for both these teams, will actually be Arvada West versus Thunder Ridge. So we're gonna be potentially.
Gosh, I hope he's healthy.
Yeah, it could be a shootout between a senior quarterback Ethan Cook and possibly freshman quarterback DJ Bordeaux. And so that could be a lot of fun. We'll see, though. But, Kodey, what do you think about Arvada West real quick here?
So, Arvada West, first off, I gave Andrew Martinez a Playmaker of the Week award. So, you have that going for you. He is returning. The only thing that is kind of tough is this defense is taking some pretty heavy losses in some very important positions. You have Reed Henkel, who led with 14 and a half tackles for loss, 10 sacks on the season. He was a senior. You have Angelo St. James, who I almost gave a Playmaker. He was in consideration for Playmaker of the Week. And you also have Chris Wilcox, who both had 4 interceptions this year. That's a lot of turnovers to try and replace. You also have the leading tackler in, I want to say, Mason Hagel-Pitt, who is also a senior. So you're losing a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. And this was a defense that I say played pretty well, from time to time this season, holding Columbine to 21 points. That's a pretty big deal. And, holding this Mullen squad to 14 and, this Ralston Valley squad, who did have an explosive offense this year, to 10 points. So, and I think that was for the league title. Yeah, it was, because they had the bye. So, big clutch wins, somewhat provided by the defense and from big turnovers. And you're losing a lot of those guys, and your quarterback has to come back from either a hip or ACL injury. There are certainly a lot of question marks for this Arvada West squad heading into next year. I'm just going to be completely honest, but I do have faith in this coaching staff. I'm pretty sure that the head coach is a former NFL player, and, he's shown the ability to adapt. So, hopefully they get some of these younger guys to step up. They already had some exposure. They're definitely a next guy up mentality. And, I think that they did a decent job of putting, people into somewhat okay positions here and maximizing their, maximizing who they had. They're also losing their third leading receiver, Ian Lee, who's going to be coming out this Wednesday on the request episodes. He was a slot receiver who was pretty fast and also a threat on special teams. But, they're losing a lot, but if their quarterback can come back healthy, he has 2 junior receivers who he got along with just fine this year, and they'll find someone who's athletic to put in that slot position who, could also lead in receptions and be a security blanket. So we will see. If not, I have a lot of faith that this freshman quarterback, with that playoff experience, could eventually be the future of this Arvada West squad as well. So,
all right. Well, there you go. I'm excited for this Arvada West next year. This year, they were a very pleasant surprise. Probably one of the biggest surprises in all of Colorado football. I'm pretty confident in saying that. In all of Colorado football, they were a pretty big surprise here. So I like what I saw, but we'll see moving forward here. All right. Now, coming up next, we're going to keep up this Arvada, theme here, and we're going to talk about Ralston Valley. Now, I'm going to be a little honest, just a little honest with some of the viewers. Ralston Valley was not on good terms with us. I'm just going to be real. I'm not going to go into it, but I don't respect some of the things that I heard and some of the things that honestly were confirmed 100%. And whatnot. Yeah, like things that would have been career changing, honestly, for all of us here on the Playmakers Corner, and we don't take stuff like that lightly. Well, that being said,
had players.
Yeah, they have players, and they have players that have given us respect that don't know about some of that beef. And so we're going to put that behind us for now, and we're going to open the door of forgiveness because, this is a team that I want to make sure we give credit to and talk about right now before next season and whatnot, because they got some dudes out there for sure. But Ralston Valley, look, they're a team that historically, they basically just run the ball and play good defense, like a lot of Arvada teams, Columbine as well. One of our former co-hosts, not anymore, but Jesse Budin, he graduated from there. And from what we saw, Ralston Valley was doing a lot of the same things. But this year, they decided to throw it just a little bit more here, changing it up, as they are finding the keys to success honestly. And so the film I'm going to play is actually of their sophomore quarterback, Logan Madden, who showed a lot of potential here at the end. And they were rotating quarterbacks at times, I assume, trying to find one that could, run a little bit of a different
We're rotating a lot of quarterbacks this season.
Yeah, but
all found some success, though.
Yeah, no, for sure. They've definitely found some success there. So I'm going to play this kid's highlights here. But on the year, went 9-3, pretty solid. I mean, we know what they do. It's pretty simple. They have talent over there. And so, I mean, they're going to play really good defense. And then offensively, usually they're just going to stack up and run it. But against Pueblo Ridge, 21-3, good up there. Played a team, Freedom in Orlando. I'm not familiar with that one. But beat them 30-17. Beat Loveland, a good 4A team, 25-6. Beat Grandview 24-13, who won the AYLs, or not the AYL.
Centennial League.
The Centennial League, my bad. I was thinking of it. It's the same thing. Beat Doherty, not the biggest accomplishment, but still did it, 53-7. Beat Mullen 40-14. Lost the shocker to Pomona 17-3. Beat Lakewood 33-0. Beat Columbine 35-14. A team that runs a similar offense to them, but they showed a little bit of versatility against Columbine, I think. Here, let me look at this box score real quick. Their quarterback.
I watched the highlights, and they were spreading it out and hitting some deep passes.
Is it Walkner? James Walkner? I'm sorry. I apologize, because I already know I'm saying it wrong. Well, he went 17 of 26, 182 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Columbine was not ready for that. Also ran for 2 touchdowns and 72 rushing yards. So very interesting there, So they caught him slipping. But then against Arvada West, this one is a little weird. A low-scoring game, only 17-10. The quarterback threw 3 interceptions in this game, and so that changed up really fast. Ethan Cook didn't exactly have the greatest game either, though. Only threw for 1 touchdown. How did they get... It must have been defense. Their defense must have scored a touchdown or something like that. Maybe a pick 6, because they only scored 1 touchdown on offense. So it had to have been something like that. But, not the worst loss, though. Arvada West was definitely, getting some stuff done. Then beat down Cherokee Trail, 42-20, badly. And then lost a close
playoffs.
One. In the playoffs, yes. And then lost a close one to Grandview, 20-16. Definitely a winnable game here. But unfortunately, came up a little bit short here. Kind of struggled passing the ball. 2 of 5 for their junior quarterback. 9 of 15 for their sophomore quarterback. Their senior running back, Markel Collins, had 79 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is probably a game where it just came down to who had the ball last here. And, unfortunately, Ralston Valley just couldn't take advantage of some of these turnovers, as they did pick off Liam Zarka 2 times in this game. So, a tough season, but altogether, I would say Ralston Valley definitely grew. We saw a lot of players step up and do their things here. They just balled out. I want to shout out our guy, Jason Tommy. He's with Team Full Gorilla. Excellent safety, somebody who looks like a D2, D1 guy probably on the next level. Led the team with 3 interceptions. Also led the team with 3 forced fumbles. Forced fumbles as well. So
he can play with pads on too. How about that?
Yeah. Also had 2 recovered 2 fumbles as well. So, pretty good. Pretty good there. And then obviously you had a couple guys on offense contribute here. Logan Madden co-led the team with 7 passing touchdowns. James here, I'm just going to say that, the junior, had 7 touchdowns. And Zach Friedman had 6 touchdowns. So if you combine all their passing touchdowns together, they passed for 21 touchdowns, which I don't think they've done since Jacob Knipp, probably. Even then, I don't know. So pretty good, all together. And so I am actually going to give them a lot more credit here. As defensively, we know what they do. They're solid. I'm not really worried about that. Offensively, they have shown that they could grow a little bit here. And so I'm going to give them their credit. But Kodey, what do you think about Ralston Valley?
Look, I'm really glad that we have a good relationship with the players there, and that's what's important to us, is spotlighting players. That's what it's all about. And, there are some teams where the players have stood up for the wrong things and have ended up on our chopping block. Ralston Valley, we were definitely upset about, some conversations that were had. But the players were like, hey, come on, we want our film broken down. Talk about Ralston Valley. And, it's hard to say no to a team that did perform very well this season and a team that, I think is going to iron out some of these things. When you're trying to develop passing system, there are going to be some growing pains, especially after, being a running team for so long, a wing T team for so long. But I think they're trending in the right direction. I mean, look, throwing for almost 2,200 yards with 3 quarterbacks rotating in and running for 1,800 yards, basically 1,900 yards. That is a very balanced offense that I think can lead to a state championship in the coming future. This is a pretty young team. They are graduating people, don't get me wrong, including their leading tackler. But they're also bringing back plenty of talent. Their leading rusher from last year ran for 500 yards. They're bringing him back. They're bringing back either Woshner or Madden, one of the two, to play quarterback. And their leading receiver is returning. 3 of their top 5 leading receivers are returning. So there's a lot to smile and be happy about here for Ralston Valley looking towards the future. And, if they can just iron some of these things out, play a little bit more consistently through the air and through the ground, just being consistently balanced, they have the defense to honestly make a run at state. They've been in contention basically every year for the past decade, but they have not broken into the ring status yet. Obviously, this upcoming season, very tough. Creek, they are returning basically everybody. But there's a lot to like here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see, Really, when it comes down to it, it's which quarterback is going to show up and secure the job, And maybe one of these is more athletic than the other. That's fine, But eventually someone has to secure the job. So just keeping all of that in mind, But that's Ralston Valley. I'm excited for next year. I think there's a lot to be excited for, for sure. And, we're just going to have to see how they continue to develop on offense, not like you said, Kodey, we're doing this for the kids, for the athletes. We respect those athletes because there are some programs where it's hard to respect anybody in the program. So, Jesus. but
okay. All that being said,
hey, I'm just saying, it is. And so, Ralston Valley, look, athletes, I think they have some good ones there. Definitely some guys who will be next level players someday, But a very young team too, to be honest with you. But let's keep it going. Kodey,
let's try and wrap this up in under 3 hours. See if we can pull it off.
We'll see. But do you want to talk about Rock Canyon here?
Yeah, so this is a team that I think is still coming into their own. This is a pretty new program, relatively new football program here. And so they still have to develop a passing offense for sure. But they did have some guys who could get it done in the backfield. And they have some big guys up front too who can run block very, very well. This team had 2 rushers who went for over 1,000 yards, which is crazy, including a junior who will be returning in Duda. I'm so sorry, Aiden. But, he ran for 11 touchdowns, and then Bernie, who ran for 10 touchdowns and also 1,000 yards, averaging almost 7 yards per carry as an entire squad and rushing for 3,500 yards. And, overall, they won their very first playoff game in program history. That's where they're at as a program. This is a very young team, a very young program, still trying to get their footing and figure some things out. But, huge congratulations to this team who did finally crack into, a program win. And what was a thriller against Smoky Hill and an absolute shootout in 2 very different ways. Rock Canyon, they still have a lot of growing to do, but you got to be encouraged by this 6-6 finish, almost beating scoring 35 points against this Arapahoe defense that was pretty crazy, competing against Thunder Ridge. You want to see them close that gap against Valor Christian, but also getting a win against Castleview. Take that. And, Rock Canyon, they have a lot of guys who have chips on their shoulders and who are working very, very hard. And, I think that they have plenty of talent to, compete in this pretty tough Highlands Ranch, kind of conference here. Not to mention that they have to compete for talent with, Mountain Vista, Thunder Ridge, Valor Christian. They're pretty close to Valor Christian, actually. I know because I work right next to Valor Christian, and sometimes I have to go to a rec center that's right next to Southbridge. So it's tough over here. Honestly, Thunder Ridge isn't even that far either. It's like a 10-minute drive. So there's a lot of high schools, needless to say, in very close proximity to one another. But, this Rock Canyon school still found ways to get it done. And they have some threats like DeAndre Horn, who can catch it through the air. And so hopefully more of these athletes developing, and they just have a lot of athletes, I should say, in general. And so if they can get someone who can distribute the ball through the air to these athletes, I think that they could be a serious threat in this conference and maybe even make some more noise in the playoffs.
I mean, yeah, agreed. I don't have too much more to say. Look, they got a lot of talent out there. Season-wise, you look at the record, it's like, they're 6-6. That's okay here. But, hey, they had some good performances here beating Mountain Vista. That's not a bad squad. They got some dudes, like you said, Thunder Ridge isn't bad. Losing to A-Rap by a touchdown basically isn't bad. This is a team that's young, like you said, they're building, and they're going to get better here. Look, guys, look out for DeAndre Horn. Absolutely. He should be
He's a freak.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature. He plays tight end, and I think that's where he's going to play on the next level. He should be a 3-star guy, honestly. That's just on athleticism, not even talking really skill yet. But from what we've seen, easily a 3-star guy. He is probably our highest rated tight end going into next year, I would say.
Yeah. He's insane.
And we haven't rated him yet. So there you go. But, I don't have too much more to say, Kodey, to be honest with you.
3-2 in the league is pretty dang impressive.
Yes, it is.
I have to put some serious respect on that. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for where this Rock Canyon school can go, and I like being in the community, so I kind of got my ear to the ground on that part. And yeah. But
shout out
that
to Rosenmeyer as well.
Oh yes.
He's gonna be a really good. I'm just gonna say that right now. Will Rosenmeyer, he was a sophomore this year. I think will be a junior next year. He's gonna make a radar. He's already on our radar, so that means he's gonna be on a couple radars already if he's not already, because he is with Team Full Gorilla and is one of their younger players over there. But excellent corner, somebody to look out for as well. We'll see. Rock Canyon, man, they can make some noise here and make it interesting, more interesting. So we'll see about that. But keep this one going as we're gonna talk about our last school here, because it is 3 hours into the stream. And if there's any school we missed, which there shouldn't be too many now, we'll talk about them on another stream. I would rather talk about them on another stream than an episode, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But
Simon, do you want to take the lead on this last program?
Yeah. Let's talk Regis Jesuit here. So, God, okay. Here's the sad thing about Regis Jesuit. We knew about all their talent over there. Nooney to Atelli, the Carroll brothers, both of them, Xavier, Xander. How come I can't think? Jaden Franklin, Franklin, their defensive tackle. For sure, we knew about him. They had another guy. Was it, oh my gosh. How come I can't think of his name right now, Kodey? He's a senior. He was a senior this year, and he was going to go on.
I thought you were going to talk about Metzger.
No, God, they had a couple guys here. I'm going to open Ezra Ikuban. There you go. He's going to UNC. Yeah, so they had. He
had a shorter season, right?
No, he played the full.
He played all 11.
Mm-hmm. He was. It's a tough. They had a lot of pass rushers, to be honest with you, between Nooney, Ezra, Hayden Moore, who is a D1 guy. Had 5 sacks on the season. He had Metzger in there as well. This was a pretty good stacked Regis Jesuit squad. But when it came down to it, we looked at their offense. They had, I believe it was Xavier Carroll, right, at quarterback, Kodey. I want to say
Xavier was the running back. I just did his breakdown recently.
Yeah, and they're good like athletes for sure. But were they going to be good enough to beat Valor Christian and Cherry Creek? The honest answer, in our opinion, was no. They just weren't going to. They're going to make the playoffs for sure. They're going to not go one and done in the playoffs. They're at least going to make the second round, maybe make a deep playoff run. But making state, I think, was just something that we felt like was just not going to happen with what they had right now. And let's talk about their season real quick here. Opened it up against Valor Christian, lost 24-6. That's not too bad, honestly. Then they beat Highlands Ranch 52-17, beat Bowling 35-21, beat Smoky Hill 42-7, lost to Cherry Creek 34-14. That's probably a game where two or three things go different on offense. Then maybe you're in contention there. Beat Chaparral up 56-14, lost a shootout with Legend 42-41, and that's an extremely talented offensive squad. So there you go. Bounce back though naturally against Doherty 56-3. Continued their run in the spring, beating Pine Creek 24-14. Beat Douglas County 34-24, and then in the playoffs beat Pomona 28-21 after their bye. Then only lost to Cherry Creek 28-7 here. I mean, like I said, and that 28-7, by the way, were actually, I think Nui Tuatelli, he was out after that Pine Creek game. So for them to beat Pomona, Douglas County like that, and for it to be as close as it was against Cherry Creek, is pretty good here. Now, let's enter an alternate universe real quick here, and let's talk about the quarterback situation as Nico Marchiol, and I don't care if I'm saying his name right or wrong, to be honest with you. Well, okay, I care a little bit. I don't want to be that disrespectful. But honestly, he's a 4-star guy, grew up in Colorado and all that. His dad played with the Saints. He was a linebacker and whatnot. His son ended up being a quarterback, and so he grew up in Colorado, played for Regis Jesuit his freshman and his sophomore year, and then he left for Arizona. And it was kind of weird because, it wasn't like he wasn't getting, looks. His sophomore season, he led Regis Jesuit to an 11-1 record and an appearance in the quarterfinals. Also tossed 27 touchdowns, 8 picks, in that season. And CSU and CU both offered him after that. And then after that, a couple other teams offered him as well. He was getting D1 offers. And then he just chose to leave for Chandler, Arizona, which is really interesting, but just Chandler, Arizona, and then enrolled at Hamilton. And I'm going to be honest with you, he was going to get the same offers from ASU, Michigan State, Florida, Georgia, LSU. Braden Dorman got all those same offers, and so for him to leave Regis Jesuit like that, one has to think, if he stayed these last 2 years, would Regis have a state championship? And I think the answer is probably yes, because then you're moving Xander to probably a more appropriate position on the next level. Same with, everyone else basically stays the same. And you have a pro-style quarterback with a great, talented defense. Two of their linebackers made our top 5 list last year. Dog, I don't know what you want. I don't know, bro, but it's definitely just a little disappointing in hindsight, because we knew what Regis Jesuit could have done, but because of that loss, we didn't really take them seriously. Kodey, what do you have to say about that, honestly? Because that's just where I'm at.
Reese Miller would have also still been at Regis too.
That too. Because when he left, other players left because he left too. And so I don't know if there was a disagreement with the Regis Jesuit coaching staff or whatever, but they at least costed Regis a state championship appearance with that. So if that was the case.
Yeah, I feel like Regis, they're a team that's always good, but not quite. Look, they've had multiple players on top 5 lists. Like Simon said, linebacker consideration. Go ahead and also listen to episode 128, where Mason talks about best of the rest edge rushers, where he breaks down Tuatelli's film. Listen to episode 130, where I break down Xavier Carroll's film, who's, a very athletic running back. Xander, he's just not quite, or at least last year, he just wasn't quite at the quarterback. I mean, look, he put up good numbers of 14 touchdowns and 3 picks, but he's not a quarterback at heart, I don't think.
Yeah.
He's just an athlete who opens up a lot of opportunities by being an athlete. But, this team was definitely missing some big pieces. Fortunately, I mean, they are graduating a handful of players, which is true, but they are returning a lot of players. The Regis is a team that reloads pretty well. They get a lot of talent from that AYL area, so especially on the Aurora side, whenever they can. So, they're a team that I think can honestly go 8-4 again next year. You could take that as a compliment. You could take that as a slight. That's just kind of how it is. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I think they will have to compete with Pine Creek for their conference now, though, and that's something to keep an eye on. So
that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. And I mean, I went to Regis Jesuit and Pine Creek freshman game, and oh boy, there's a lot of talent on both sides. Pine Creek definitely took care of Regis in that freshman game. Kind of not easily, but Cam Coop, he threw like 3 or 4 touchdowns, scored 3 or 4 touchdowns, something like that, a casual 3 or 4. And that's arguably, I think a lot of people are saying they're the best freshman team in the state outside of Pine Creek. So we'll have to see. They're going to reload. They're going to get better. It's just disappointing, to think about the what ifs. Like, what if Nico stayed? I think we would have seen a lot more competition. I think Regis Jesuit easily could have replaced Valor Christian in the state championship, but we'll never know. And so
yes, we'll never know.
Yeah, it's just how it is right now. So there you go. But hey, that wraps up this episode. Man.
Thank you for sticking with us. Also, if there were any teams that you didn't hear, before you go requesting them, go ahead and listen to Playmakers Corner episode 100 and Playmakers Corner episode 101. There is plenty to talk about in those season in reviews. Episode 100 being 1 through 3A, episode 101 being 4A and 5A. So go ahead and listen to those. We need 11 more listens for those to reach 500. And then, I don't know, maybe I'll buy Simon Whataburger. I'm looking for an excuse to go there. So, Simon, keep an eye on those numbers. 500 and your Whataburger meal is on me.
We'll see. We'll see about that. But, yeah.
You not want free food?
Sure.
It just comes with the stipulation. So help Coach V.
I appreciate that. But, I mean, help us. And go ahead and follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Playmakers Corner. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Playmakers Corner. That's where we'll be posting this entire live stream. Well, I don't know. I'll think about putting in timestamps and whatnot. I'm sure that'll help and whatnot. I'll think about that, either that or maybe splitting up some of these segments here and posting them. But we'll think about all that stuff. So just go ahead and subscribe to us there. Also follow us on Twitch. Appreciate y'all. We're at 37 followers, which is pretty good, and we are at a pretty steady couple watchers a stream, which is great. We appreciate y'all. Hey, 50, we get to affiliate, and that would help us out a lot money-wise. Not even going cap. So there you go there. But thank you so much for rocking with us. Look out for these request episodes coming out. Streams, Sundays or Wednesdays. We'll figure it out depending on just what works best for a schedule, as I am now working a job. I'm working a job now outside of this, so we're going to have to balance some of that out. And, things are just going to be busy for us. So we're doing what we can this offseason, covering Colorado football, women's flag football. That season is ending soon here. We're in the last couple weeks. We're going to hit postseason, and then the Nationals as well. So there you go there. If you're following that, thank you for following it. It's the future of football, so you might as well do it. So, but I've been your co-host, Simon Villanos, aka Coach V.
If you're wondering when to listen to streams, just follow us on social media where we put up announcements. I'm your other co-host, Kodey Stauffer, and if you have any complaints about the request episodes on Monday and Wednesday, well, Mason and I are out of town, and Simon is working on women's flag football, so that's tough.
Yeah. Too bad. All right, y'all have a good one.